Chapter 2385. Western Continent, a portal to the Western Continent? Yan Tianqing and the others turned to their guild leader in astonishment. God's domain's various powers were no longer ignorant of the Western Continent, and a few superpowers had already gained the ability to travel between the two main continents. The resources these superpowers had returned with had made the various powers jealous. God's domain's continents had very different cultures. Not only did their developmental directions differ, but each continent had largely different resources. Thus, each continent's players could greatly benefit from the other's resources. Based on what Yan Tianqing and his comrades knew, players on the Western Continent had very different daily expenditures than those on the Eastern Continent. The Eastern Continent's players mainly relied on coins as a currency due to the continent's focus on combat techniques. Naturally, relying on combat techniques in battle placed a huge burden on weapons and equipment, and as a result, players spent a lot of their money on repair fees. On the Western Continent, players relied on magic crystals more than coins. The Western Continent's players focused more on basic attributes and mana use. Thus, they needed magic crystals to strengthen themselves and their weapons and equipment. Of course, magic crystals were a rare and precious commodity on both continents, but due to the Western Continent's developmental direction, magic crystals were worth far more there. In contrast, the materials to produce weapons and equipment were much cheaper than on the Eastern Continent. If Zero Wing were able to travel between the two continents, it would become a true superpower in no time. That's right. I discovered a hidden clue about a magic gate here, one that's been passed down since ancient times. As long as we activate the magic gate, we'll be able to travel between the continents, Xueqi said, making up a random excuse to avoid suspicion. The various superpowers were desperately searching for ways to travel between the continents, but very few had succeeded. It'd be strange if he discovered a portal by chance. Is the portal stable, guild leader? Yi Luofei eagerly asked. When they heard Yi Luofei's question, the rest of the team perked up in curiosity. None of them doubted Xueqi's word. Players had discovered many of God's domain's quests and portals through hidden clues. There was nothing strange about one of these clues leading to a portal connected to the two main continents. Rather, everyone was more curious about whether or not the portal was safe. If it were a single-use portal, it wouldn't be of much help to Zero Wing. At most, they could make a quick buck by reselling the Western Continent's resources once. However, if the portal were stable, they could continue to make money until travel between the continents became the norm. The difference between the two would be massive. Based on the clue I found, it should be, Xueqi said. Unfortunately, we'll only know how large the portal is once we activate it. The portal they were looking for was stable, or he wouldn't have bothered to travel all the way out here. But since he had never seen or used the portal personally, he didn't know its exact details. On the Eastern Continent, the Ten Saints Empire had the most portals that led to the Western Continent. Based on what Xueqi knew, there were nearly 10 stable portals in the Empire, and among them, the largest and most stable was under multiple superpowers' control. That was also the portal most players relied on to travel between the continents. After considering Zero Wing's situation, Xueqi had decided that the Demon Wolf Mountain Ranges portal was the best suited for his guild. This portal was incredibly stable. During Xueqi's previous life, a dark power had secretly controlled it. The public had only learned about its existence after travel between the continents had become more commonplace, and the various superpowers had grown to envy the dark power that had controlled this portal. Xueqi's answer excited his team. The guild really wouldn't have to worry about its development if they could secure this portal. While Xueqi and his players conversed, the Crimson Dragon flying ship reached a frozen lake within the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner region. A layer of snow covered the frozen lake, which was so large it could easily contain several cities. If the system map hadn't labeled this area as a lake, players would have likely mistaken it for a snowy plain. However, before the Crimson Dragon flying ship began to descend, the team was overwhelmed by an eerie feeling. They looked down at the lake, noticing a large number of frozen humans and beasts. The human sculptures all wore the same armor and clothing, and the weakest among them was Tier 3. If the Ten Saints Empire's players saw these humans' armor, they would have been shocked. The armor and clothing those statues wore were that of the Sacred Brilliance Division, one of the Ten Saints Empire's 7 Mythic Knight divisions. The 7 Mythic Knight divisions had been the Ten Saints Empire's prided source of apex combat power since ancient times. It was rumored that just one of these knight divisions could destroy an entire kingdom. However, these several thousand knights stood, frozen, on the lake below. Based on their positions and expressions, it was obvious that these knights had been frozen before they had even begun to prepare for battle. Those were several thousand Tier 3 NPCs they were talking about. Just thinking about the implications of this made Yan Tianqing and his companions shudder. God's domain operated on a system of cause and effect. A group of Tier 3 NPCs wouldn't freeze to death for no reason. Something must have attacked these Sacred Brilliance Division Knights. The scene even dumbfounded Xueqi. According to his information, there shouldn't be any NPCs here, let alone one of the 7 Mythic Knight divisions. All he should have needed to do was repair the magic gate and protect it from the monsters in the lake. Look at that statue, guild leader. It seems to be radiating a faint glow. Blackie said as he pointed at an ice sculpture beneath the flying ship. Unlike the other frozen knights, the sculpture Blackie pointed to glowed with a faint, golden light. It was also dressed more luxurious than the rest and gave off a trace of divine might. The divine might didn't originate from an item, but from the NPC himself. A hero? Xueqi was surprised to see the frozen NPC in question. Heroes were apex beings among the human race, and although everyone knew they existed, meeting a living hero was an extraordinarily rare encounter. Most heroes had died ages ago and only retained a fraction of their original strength. And yet, Xueqi could tell that the frozen hero below him was still alive. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU Guild Leader, should we check them out? Blackie asked. Let's go take a look, Xueqi agreed after considering the situation. They didn't really have a choice. The magic gate they were after was sealed under the hero's feet. They couldn't avoid approaching the NPC unless they gave up on the magic gate. Shortly after the Crimson Dragon flying ship landed on the lake, a deep, powerful voice addressed the team. Adventurers, might I trouble you to remove this seal? Xueqi, the team leader, then received a system notification. Chapter 2386. Another inferior legendary quest system. Inferior legendary quest. Last night, triggered. You have 3 minutes to accept the quest or not. You will not be penalized for refusing the quest. System. If you choose to accept the quest and complete it, you will gain Holy Knight Alba Grey's favor. Alba Grey's favorability of you beyond the corresponding reward will depend on the quest's completion rate. System. If you fail to complete the quest, all basic attributes will be permanently decreased by 100 points. You will lose 5 levels, and your reputation in the Ten Saints Empire will be reduced by 500 points. The system notifications repeated 3 times. He's Alba Grey. Xueqi stared at the frozen middle-aged man before him in astonishment. The penalties for failing the quest didn't particularly surprise him. In fact, for an inferior legendary quest, the penalties were a bit light. Even epic quests had more severe consequences for failure. What truly surprised Xueqi was the hero's name. Alba Grey. Every player in Xueqi's previous life had known this name. Alba Grey had been one of the 8 famed smiths in the past. Before him, even a talented Grandmaster Forger amounted to nothing. The various superpowers had gone crazy over Alba Grey in the past because only the famed smiths could forge legendary items. The easiest method of obtaining a suitable legendary item was to seek the help of a famed smith. Relying on players to craft such an item was barely a dream. Hence, the various superpowers had done everything they could to gain any of the known famed smiths' favorability. Even Tier 6 God-ranked players would go crazy for a custom-made legendary item. They'd even destroy an entire kingdom to get their hands on one. Unfortunately, gaining a famed smith's favorability was easier said than done. Players would be lucky enough to meet a famed smith, much less earn their favorability. Famed smiths enjoyed even higher status than kings, and even the War God's Temple, one of God's domain's few apex powers, treated such NPCs with great respect. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to earn such an influential individual's favorability. Xueqi had never thought that not only would he meet the legendary Alba Grey here, but he'd even get a chance to earn the NPC's favorability by simply accepting the quest. If the various superpowers of his past life found out about this, they'd kill him out of jealousy. Without any hesitation, Xueqi accepted the inferior legendary quest. He then received another notification stating that his favorability with Alba Grey had increased by 10 points. The rest of the team was also notified of the quest. Are we really going to challenge this inferior legendary quest? Blackie asked, worriedly glancing at the last night quest's rank. Major powers' upper echelons, like himself, were very familiar with Quest's difficulties. He was beyond feeling fortunate just because he accepted a high-rank quest. Great rewards came with great risks in God's domain. Many major powers had suffered grievously for accepting high-ranked quests that they couldn't complete. Some guilds had even destroyed themselves due to uncompleted quests. Meanwhile, not only was the last night an inferior legendary quest, but it was also in such a dangerous location. Even with Zero Wing's 25 Tier 3 players, Blackie wasn't confident in completing the quest. The rest of the team was just as concerned. The weakest monster they had seen in the Demon Wolf Mountain range had been a level 100 lord, and throughout their journey, they had spotted level 110 plus great lords and grand lords. Aside from Xueqi, they were all new to Tier 3. Furthermore, they had yet to upgrade their weapons and equipment. Just standing in the Demon Wolf Mountain range was incredibly risky for them, let alone trying to complete an inferior legendary quest. The quest rewards are incredible. Not accepting it would be a waste, Xueqi said, chuckling. He didn't bother to explain his decision, however. We've already reached Tier 3. Even if we fail and lose 5 levels, we can earn them back quickly. Enough worrying. Let's get going. The 10 favorability points they had just gained were far more valuable than the basic attributes and levels they risked losing. Countless superpowers would willingly make such a trade. There were many methods to increasing basic attributes, and gaining levels was even easier. Furthermore, if they completed this quest, they'd gain even more favorability with Alba Grey. Regardless of the outcome, accepting this quest would only benefit players. Only a fool would reject it. Xueqi then approached Alba Grey, and after a moment of thought, the rest of the team saw their guild leader's reasoning. Now that they had reached Tier 3, their leveling speed was far faster than Tier 2 players. Even if they lost 5 levels, they could recover and maintain their advantage over others relatively easily. Lord Hero, may I know what we need to do to remove your seal? Xueqi asked Alba Grey. Unfortunately, my night division came across the Jealous Witch at a bad time, and she cursed us, adventurers. Since my comrades lacked the protection and blessings of the gods, they died when they were frozen. Although I am protected by the gods, I cannot fully stop the curse from eroding my body. I ask that you collect some of the mana the Jealous Witch left behind in this land. I will also need you to stop the ice elf, Ulunium, whom the Jealous Witch left to oversee my demise. That will buy me enough time to break free from the curse, Alba Grey mentally relayed. System: Inferior Legendary Quest, Last Night. Quest content: Collect 1,000 strands of mana the Jealous Witch left behind in this land to remove Alba Grey's curse. Before removing Alba Grey's curse, you must do all you can to stop the ice elf, Ulunium. You have 10 days to complete the quest. The less time you spend completing the quest, the higher the quest's completion rate will be. Xueqi's teammate gasped when they saw the quest's contents. Crap! This quest is fraudulent. Blackie's face twitched as he read the quest details. Collect 1,000 strands of mana in 10 days? How are we supposed to do that? They were all familiar with the concept of collecting mana for a quest. Normally, players could complete the task by killing Great Lord rank or higher monsters in a specified location. Although killing level 100 Great Lords might be easy with their strength, collecting 1,000 mana strands within 10 days was a joke. Level 100 Great Lords had incredibly high HP. Even their team would need at least 15 minutes to kill one. Although God's Domain's days consisted of 48 hours, they'd have to grind non-stop for 5 days to complete this quest. To make matters worse, Great Lords only had a chance of dropping the required mana. To put it simply, this quest was the system's way of toying with them. It's no wonder why only a few superpowers had earned enough of the famed Smith's favorability to commission an item. Xueqi couldn't help his bitter smile after listening to Alba Grey's request. Not even a 100-man, Tier 3 team could complete this quest, especially since players had just recently reached level 100. Guild leader, we should call in all of the guild's experts, Yan Tianqing suggested. That's not a viable option, I'm afraid, Xueqi said, shaking his head. More help would increase their chances of success, but the Ten Saints Empire was quite far from Star Moon Kingdom. The teleportation fees alone would be a huge burden on the guild, and players would need a long time to travel from the Ten Saints Empire to the Demon Wolf Mountain range. Most importantly, ordinary Tier 2 experts would have no hope of surviving in this forbidden land. But at this rate, we won't be able to complete the quest, Yan Tianqing insisted. He had considered the same issues with his suggestion, but their team of 25 simply couldn't slay enough great lords within the time limit. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. We're not completely out of options, Xueqi said after giving the matter some thought. Blackie, contact Melancholic and tell her to gather all of the secret silver guards I asked her to find in White River City's candlelight trading firm. I'll head over right away. While I'm gone, I want the rest of you to collect as many mana strands as possible. He had already instructed Melancholic Smile to locate high-growth potential secret silver guards for him. He had even shared all of the clues he knew of with her. He had intended to use soul strengthening to upgrade these secret silver guards to fine gold rank and use them to boost Zero Wing's combat power. While secret silver guards could fend off peak experts, they'd be no match for apex experts. The same couldn't be said of fine gold guards, however, especially a full team of them. If they worked together, fine gold guards could slay domain realm experts as easily as playing with children. Secret silver guards? Xueqi's order confused Blackie. He didn't understand why Xueqi would want a bunch of secret silver guards, but he did as he was told. Xueqi then boarded the Crimson Dragon flying ship and left the Demon Wolf Mountain range, which prevented any form of teleportation, in a hurry. Once he was free of the Forbidden Land, he used a return scroll and teleported to White River City's candlelight trading firm. Chapter 2387, Strengthening the Ancient Gods Literature Fragment. White River City, Candlelight Trading Firm. Compared to the surrounding player-owned shops and NPC shops, the Candlelight Trading Firm's 21-story shop loomed a giant overseeing the city's business district. Almost every new visitor to White River City gasped when they saw it. The players that focused on their subclasses gave the magnificent building particularly longing looks. These players' reactions weren't simply because White River City's Candlelight Trading Firm was a 4-star shop, but also due to Zero Wing's latest announcement. All Zero Wing and Candlelight Trading Firm members could purchase a private house in Stone Forest City with their GCPs. Even the various superpowers hungered after Stone Forest City's private houses, and because of this announcement, the various major powers players envied Zero Wing and Candlelight's members. Even a fool would recognize the immeasurable future ahead for Stone Forest City. Although a level 100 neutral map was very dangerous, there was no doubt that it was an excellent leveling spot for current players. Furthermore, nowhere within God's domain's many kingdoms and empires could match the city's scenery. With one of the city's private houses, one would have bragging rights for life. Unfortunately, securing a permanent private house in Stone Forest City was easier said than done. Zero Wing had no intentions of selling its private houses to outsiders, only lease them. Once the lease ended, players would have to bid for the house in another auction. And yet, as a member of Zero Wing or Candlelight, one could own their own house in the city. Why wouldn't outsiders be jealous? As Xueqi made his way toward the Candlelight Trading Firm, his guild emblem, that of Zero Wing's core members, attracted many envious looks, even though he hid his appearance and identity with a black cloak. He's actually a Zero Wing core member? It'd be great if I could get to know him, a level 96 female elementalist said, her eyes glowing brightly as she watched Xueqi pass by. Nowadays, Zero Wing shone like the midday sun in Star Moon Kingdom and its several neighboring kingdoms. Even other kingdoms' major powers had to show respect for the guild. In addition, countless adventurer teams sought to befriend Zero Wing's core members in hopes of gaining some advantage in the Cold Spring Forest. Isn't he just a core member? What's so great about that? A level 97 male shield warrior said in jealousy. If I were willing to deal with the restrictions, I could join Zero Wing and become a core member too. Even for you that'd be a challenge, the female elementalist said, shaking her head at the disgruntled shield warrior. I've heard that since Zero Wing has so many members now, they've raised the requirement for elite members to the middle stage of the Trial Tower's 5th floor. If you wanted to become a core member, you'd have to reach the 6th floor's middle stage at the very least. At this stage of the game, players only needed to reach the late stage of the Trial Tower's 5th floor to be considered an expert. There was a huge difference between the 5th and 6th floors. Even in well-known adventurer teams, the experts that could reach the 6th floor's middle stage could be counted on one hand. When he heard the requirement to become a Zero Wing core member, the level 97 shield warrior fell silent. He belonged to a well-known adventurer team from the Black Dragon Empire, and very few of his teammates could reach that stage. He had only recently reached the 5th floor's late stage. He was nowhere strong enough to become a core member in Zero Wing. We've already raised the core member requirements that high? Xueqi was similarly surprised when he overheard the conversation. To ensure that the guild's core members had enough resources to develop, Zero Wing had limited the number of players that could become core members. The guild only had limited resources, especially the rarer resources, after all. There simply weren't enough to supply an endless number of members. Of course, exceptions could be made for the players that met the guild's high standards. As far as Xueqi could remember, the minimum requirement to become a core member had been fixed at the early stage of the trial tower's 6th floor, with a higher standard of reaching the 6th floor's late stage. If players reached the late stage, they wouldn't have to take part in the core members' monthly elimination competition. But apparently, the minimum requirement had been raised to the 6th floor's middle stage. It was easy to imagine how many experts had recently joined his guild. Xueqi had to admit that using Stone Forest City to promote Zero Wing had been amazingly effective. Moreover, as time passed, the core membership minimum requirements would become more demanding, and the guild would acquire even more experts. Although Xueqi was pleased with his guild's development, he felt a little pressured. More experts meant greater demand for resources. If the guild failed to meet these experts' needs, it would only be a matter of time before they left the guild as other powers established towns and cities in level 100 neutral maps. Whether or not Zero Wing grew into a superpower would depend on the guild's income of coins and resources. Considering this issue, Xueqi hurried toward the candlelight trading firm. Melancholic Smile had already gathered the secret silver guards she had gone to great lengths to find in one of the top-floor basic meditation rooms. As Xueqi entered the room, she promptly handed him a detailed list of these guards. Guild leader, after scouring the various kingdoms and empires, I managed to find 16 secret silver guards with very high growth potential. I've secured other secret silver guards as well, but their growth potential isn't as high. Melancholic Smile awkwardly reported as she gestured to the row of guards behind her. Xueqi had provided her with plenty of clues, and she had utilized the secret pavilion's connections to follow them. However, even after so many days of searching, she had only found 16 secret silver guards that fit Xueqi's criteria. 16. Xueqi was ecstatic with her results. Finding secret silver guards wasn't easy. They all had a considerably high chance of reaching Tier 4, after all. Even after 10 years in God's domain, not even first-rate guilds had been able to afford to take a Tier 4 combatant lightly. Tier 5 and Tier 6 experts were far too rare. As for second- and third-rate guilds, they had been wise to fear Tier 4 combatants. Melancholic Smile simply didn't realize how amazing her accomplishment was. Xueqi instructed Melancholic Smile to continue her hunt for secret silver guards with high growth potential and materials for the Crimson Dragon flying ships. Meanwhile, he snuck the 16 secret silver guards to the shop's second basement floor, where the shop's private warehouse was located. Only the shop's owner had access to this area. At epic rank, the Ancient Gods literature fragment could only strengthen 1 soul per day, but he only had 10 days to complete his inferior legendary quest. At most, he had time to strengthen 9 secret silver guards. He'd never complete his quest with so few fine gold guards. Hence, Xueqi intended to use the Holy Grail to upgrade the Ancient Gods literature fragment. Since the Ancient Gods literature fragment was bound to his soul, which prevented him from trading it or storing it in a warehouse, he had been afraid of upgrading it. It could also drop if he died. If he lost the literature fragment after upgrading it, he would mourn the loss. However, now that he had risen to Tier 3, he was strong enough to protect himself. Now, the chances of someone killing him were extremely low. The Ancient Gods literature fragment's abilities were frightening, and if he could evolve it, it had become an unimaginable benefit to Zero Wing. After carefully retrieving the Holy Grail from its shelf, Xueqi used it to scan the Ancient Gods literature fragment. A short moment later, a system notification informed Xueqi of the life force required to evolve the literature fragment. He would have to permanently sacrifice 50,000 HP. Read latest chapters at Xueqi World. EU so much. The number took Xueqi by surprise. For Tier 2 players, losing 50,000 HP was fatal, and the evolution wasn't even a guaranteed success. If the evolution failed, then he'd lose 50,000 HP for nothing, which was why Xueqi didn't use the Holy Grail casually. However, Xueqi did not consider the issue for long. Compared to the benefits he could gain from upgrading the Ancient Gods literature fragment, losing 50,000 HP was acceptable. After all, the Ancient Gods literature fragment wasn't an ordinary epic item, and he currently had nearly 1 million HP. Fortunately, HP wasn't particularly important for a swordsman, and Xuefeng knew of many ways in God's domain to increase his HP permanently. Evolve. Xuefeng growled, gritting his teeth. As he did, the Holy Grail plundered 50,000 HP from Xuefeng and converted it into purple-blue smoke that enveloped the ancient god's literature fragment. Chapter 2388. Evolution effects suspended in mid-air. The ancient god's literature fragment radiated a golden light as it hungrily devoured the purple-blue smoke. As the literature fragment absorbed more of the smoke, the engraved divine runes sharpened. The surrounding mana began to flow toward the literature fragment, as well. After 10 seconds of this, the divine runes on the ancient god's literature fragment had completed, fully repaired, and it radiated far stronger divine might than before. What a powerful aura! Xuefeng began to grow excited as he sensed the literature fragment's divine might. The strength of the divine might meant the literature fragment had been upgraded, and the process was a success. Eagerly, Xuefeng clicked to inspect the ancient god's literature fragment. Ancient god's literature fragment. Page V. Epic rank item. An ancient parchment that has undergone the baptism of time. The divine runes have been fully restored by the Holy Grail and contain unbelievable power. Summon heroic spirit. Sacrifice a portion of the user's soul to summon 18 ancient heroic warriors to do battle. The summoned heroic warriors will be one tier higher than the user up to tier 3. Duration, 12 hours cooldown, 3 natural days. A weakened soul cannot conduct the summoning. Skill 2, Soul Absorption. Absorbs the souls of half-dead creatures for a high chance to generate a drop of soul essence. Cooldown, 3 hours. Stronger targeted creatures increase the chances of generating soul essence. Skill 3, Soul Strengthening. Consume soul essence to strengthen a creature's soul. Cooldown, 3 hours. Stronger targeted creatures require more soul essence for soul strengthening. Skill 4, Divine Resonance. Automatically detects any ancient god's literature fragments within a 1,000-yard radius. This item is bound to the owner's soul and cannot be traded or stored in a warehouse. This fragment also has a chance of dropping on death. Drops on death if in a weakened soul state. Why is it still epic rank? Xuefeng was confused when he saw the ancient god's literature fragment statistics. In terms of abilities, the upgraded ancient god's literature fragment was stronger than some of the fragmented legendary items Xuefeng had seen. In fact, if the various superpowers found out about the literature fragment's current abilities, they'd likely offer to trade several fragmented legendary items for it. Yet, despite such abilities, the ancient god's literature fragment was still an epic item. It was unbelievable. Sure enough, I'll need to collect more fragments if I want to upgrade its rank, Xuefeng concluded. The ancient god's literature was a divine tome, which numerous ancient gods had written. It had the power to decimate the heavens and earth. Trying to upgrade a single fragment to fragmented legendary rank was simply unrealistic. However, Xuefeng was satisfied with the results. With the minor strengthening, the literature fragment's summon heroic spirit skill had massively improved. The skill was enough to make him a one-man army. Furthermore, soul absorption and soul strengthening's cooldowns had shortened significantly. Every one of the changes had exceeded Xuefeng's expectations. Most importantly, his ancient god's literature fragment now had the ability to locate other fragments within range. This effect would make it much easier to compile the fragments. If he could complete the tome, the ancient god's literature would benefit the guild far more than 4 or 5 more fragmented legendary items. Following which, Xuefeng stored the Holy Grail and turned to face the secret silver guards behind him. These secret silver guards weren't like monsters like Anna and Kite. Each only needed 3 drops of soul essence for their first soul strengthening. Fortunately, Xuefeng had collected over 100 drops, so he could strengthen all 16 secret silver guards at least once. With 16 fine gold guards and Anna and Kite's strength, he could move through the Demon Wolf Mountain range unhindered. Xuefeng wasted no time as he began to chant the Soul Strengthening's incantation and target the elementalist before him. A 5-fold magic array, one far stronger than the one that had appeared when Xuefeng had strengthened Kite's soul, immediately appeared under the elementalist's feet. The array even absorbed mana from its surroundings and the void at least 3 times faster than it had with Kite. Very quickly, a fist-sized ball of liquid mana appeared before the elementalist. This ball of mana melted into the elementalist's forehead, and the secret silver guard released a bone-piercing howl. Although the elementalist was in pain, Xueqi could clearly sense the guard's aura rapidly growing stronger. This excruciating process continued for 5 seconds. By the time the ball of liquid mana and the elementalist had merged completely, the elementalist felt like a completely different person. To Xueqi, the level 103, Tier 3 Great Mage had only felt slightly threatening. But now, even he'd have to tread carefully in a fight with this NPC. This NPC improved so drastically. Xueqi could not believe his eyes when he saw the Great Mage's statistics. Previously, the Great Mage had only had 78 growth potential, which was considerably high for a Secret Silver Guard. Secret Silver Guard's growth potential only ranged between 71 and 80, and this Great Mage had only been 3 points away from Fine Gold rank. When Xueqi used Soul Strengthening on Kite, the NPC's growth potential had only risen by 2 points. While Xueqi had expected a greater increase for a Secret Silver Guard, he had only expected a 3 or 4 point increase at best. However, the Great Mage's growth potential had risen by 5 points, to 83. The Great Mage had crossed the Fine Gold threshold and more. Every additional point of growth potential was significant to personal guards. At 83, a personal guard could perfectly suppress an apex expert of the same level and tier. Xueqi couldn't help his growing excitement. With the Ancient Gods Literature Fragment's new strength, he could even elevate Secret Silver Guards with 76 growth potential to Fine Gold rank. Now, Zero Wing could amass a small army of Fine Gold Guards. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Xueqi immediately contacted Melancholic Smile and had her send him the Guild's Secret Silver Guards with at least 76 growth potential to the basic meditation room on the top floor. Guild Leader, those guards are currently protecting Silverwing Town. I'm afraid that I'll need some time to find temporary replacements and recall them all to White River City, Melancholic Smile said. Of the Secret Silver Guard she had found, she had ordered those that met Xueqi's requirements to stand guard in White River City. She had sent the rest to defend Silverwing Town in the meantime. Secret Silver Guards had incredible combat power, and once they reached level 100, they could complete their promotion to Tier 3. They were an excellent deterrent in the Chaotic or Empire. Don't worry about it. Just recall them all here, Xueqi said. He did not mind waiting. The upgraded Soul Strengthening still had a 3-hour cooldown, and it would take a full natural day to strengthen the 16 Secret Silver Guards before him. All right, I'll start making the necessary arrangements, Melancholic Smile said, not giving the matter much thought. She then contacted the core members that owned the Secret Silver Guards in question. Chapter 2389. Fine Gold Team. While Xueqi waited quietly for Silverwing Town's Secret Silver Guards to arrive in the top-floor basic meditation room, Liang Jing contacted him. Guild Leader, we've got trouble in the Dark Knight Empire. Liang Jing exclaimed. The Dark Knight Empire? What's happened? Xueqi asked when he saw Liang Jing's anxious expression. Although Zero Wing hadn't been developing in the Dark Knight Empire for long, it had received help from Unyielding Soul. Because of that, both Zero Wing's strength and the Candlelight Trading Firm's business had been progressing relatively smoothly, and thanks to Stone Forest City, more of the Empire's experts sought to join Zero Wing. Moreover, Starlink hadn't been able to do anything drastic against Zero Wing for fear of unexpected attacks from Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor. Hence, Zero Wing's branch in the Dark Knight Empire was booming. Starlink has established a city at the Gloomy Hills, a map near the Gloomy Ruin, a level 100 neutral map. Moreover, Starlink has announced that it is opening the city to all of its Adventurer Alliance's members. Many of the Empire's experts are siding with Starlink because of this, and some experts and adventurer teams that had been thinking of joining the Star Moon Adventure Alliance have changed their minds, Liang Jing explained. In addition, the Dark Knight Empire's various major powers have started to side with Starlink. Even Crimson Emperor is considering a partnership. Starlink has also announced that it will lease its new city's private houses with a starting bid of only 10,000 credits per week. Even many of Star Moon Kingdom's major powers and adventurer teams have been discussing the idea of shifting their development to the Dark Knight Empire. The fact that Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor held Starlink back was a large part of the reason for Zero Wing's survival in the Dark Knight Empire. In addition, the Dark Knight Empire's various major powers had sided with Zero Wing to keep Starlink in check. Hence, the most Starlink had been able to do was pressure Zero Wing's territory in the Empire. However, if Crimson Emperor and the various major powers sided with Starlink, the Zero Wing's members in the Empire would be in danger. Furthermore, Now that Starlink had a city in the gloomy hills, Zero Wing's experts couldn't operate in the level 90+ resource map. Needless to say, this also made it impossible for the guild members to reach the gloomy ruin. And with Starlink's bounty still in effect, a large number of independent experts and adventurer teams would target Zero Wing's members. If this persisted, it wouldn't be long before Zero Wing could no longer survive in the Dark Knight Empire. Zero Wing had already grown to a substantial size, and there were only so many high-level maps in each country. The high-level maps available around Star Moon Kingdom weren't enough to fulfill Zero Wing's needs. Although the Cold Spring Forest was rich in resources, very few guild members were strong enough to grind in a level 100 neutral map right now. At this stage of the game, a grinding team would need a peak expert to lead it if it wanted to survive in such an area. Unfortunately, unlike the various superpowers, Zero Wing only had a small number of peak experts. The majority of the guild's players would still need some time to grind in level 90+ maps. Starlink wants to gather both manpower and resources? Xueqi had a rough idea of what the enemy guild planned after listening to Liang Jing's report. Starlink's new city might not be as impressive as Stone Forest City, but it was near a level 100 neutral map. It would also be quite useful to players who wanted to explore the gloomy ruin, and Starlink was accepting far cheaper rent for the private houses in its new city. It was enough to tempt many players. However, this wasn't good news for Zero Wing, which needed credits and resources. What should we do, guild leader? At this rate, not only will we earn less income from our private houses, but more experts will target our guild members as well, Liang Jing said. The opportunity to enter Stone Forest City was a large part of the reason that the Star Moon Adventure Alliance had attracted so many experts, but only silver and higher-ranked members could take advantage of that opportunity. On the other hand, Starlink gave all of its Adventure Alliance's members access to its new city. Naturally, this would make the Star Moon Adventure Alliance less attractive to independent experts. Starlink's Adventure Alliances would also gain more independent experts to target Zero Wing's members. Lu Xinglua is sacrificing his new guild city just to deal with us? I guess he really wants this to be a fight to the death, Xueqi said, frowning. Since he wants a war of resources, I'll play with him until he's satisfied. Make the arrangements. From now on, half the number of CPs required to become a silver member in the Star Moon Adventure Alliance, and we'll hold auctions for the Crimson Sunsets. However, only silver members and above will be allowed to participate, and the starting bid will be 30,000 magic crystals and 10,000 gold. We're auctioning the Crimson Sunsets? Liang Jing could not help but gasp. But guild leader, those are a part of our guild's foundation. Our guild members also need those to survive in level 100 neutral maps. If we sell the Crimson Sunsets, nothing was more important than one's strength to the various powers and players. If the Star Moon Adventure Alliance auctioned off the Crimson Sunsets to its members, there was no doubt that experts and adventurer teams would swarm to join the alliance. However, the Crimson Sunsets were an advantage Zero Wing's members needed over other players. If they auctioned the Crimson Sunsets to the public, they'd only help other players rapidly improve, which wouldn't benefit Zero Wing's development. It's fine. The Crimson Sunset might be valuable, but it is still a consumable. Moreover, as players reach higher levels, it'll become less valuable. Since the various superpowers experts have started to reach level 100, this is the perfect opportunity to sell the sets, Xueqi said, chuckling. Before this, he would have hesitated to make such a decision, but he didn't mind now. Now, he had an even stronger trump card to assure Zero Wing's advantage in the Cold Spring Forest. The Ancient Gods Literature Fragment. With so many fine gold guards, Zero Wing wouldn't have to worry about the various superpowers peak experts. Giving the matter some thought, Liang Jing agreed with Xueqi. Besides, Zero Wing didn't have a better option to stop Starlink from poaching its potential members. She disconnected the call and immediately saw to Xueqi's orders, publishing a public announcement regarding the Crimson Sunsets auction on the notice boards in the Star Moon Adventure Alliance's residences. When players noticed the announcement, it caused a sensation throughout the Adventure Alliance. Crap! Zero Wing is too amazing. A Tier 2 mana set equipment. If I had a Crimson Sunset, I could challenge my Tier 3 promotion quest right away. The Star Moon Adventure Alliance's members were astonished when they saw the Crimson Sunset's attributes. None of them had ever thought that Zero Wing would have such powerful equipment. The experts and adventurer teams that had considered joining Starlink's Adventure Alliances changed their minds instantly. Some that had even joined Starlink's adventure alliances already made their way to the Star Moon Adventure Alliance after learning about the Crimson Sunsets. Of course, the various large guilds were just as stunned. Is Zero Wing insane? It's actually selling mana set equipment? Zero Wing is probably panicking. Starlink's new city has dealt quite a blow, after all. These large guilds all thought Zero Wing was foolish to sell the Crimson Sunsets. The guild was practically throwing away a huge advantage. Selling the Crimson Sunset might alleviate Zero Wing's current problems, but it wouldn't benefit the guild in the long run. Moreover, once the Crimson Sunsets were no longer useful, the various adventurer teams and independent experts would return to Starlink's side. While everyone discussed the mana set equipment, Xueqi visited his special forging room to produce more of them while he waited for the Soul Strengthening's cooldown to end. Before long, all 12 secret silver guards with 76 growth potential arrived in White River City's Candlelight trading firm. Including the 16 secret silver guards he already had, Zero Wing would have 28 more fine gold guards in its ranks once he finished strengthening them all. Even 28 secret silver guards would be more than enough combat power for a guild to rule a level 100 neutral map with an iron fist, not to mention 28 fine gold guards. After nearly 2 days, Xueqi had finally strengthened all of the 28 secret silver guards. The smallest improvement had still been a 5-point growth potential increase, while the largest had been a 7-point increase, rising from 79 to 86 growth potential. Even among fine gold guards, 86 growth potential was incredibly rare. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU 28 fine gold personal guards. If the various superpowers of my past knew about this, they'd go mad. Xueqi sighed ruefully as he gazed at the 2 rows of personal guards before him. If he had had so many fine gold guards under his command during his previous life, he wouldn't have even been afraid of standing up to superpowers, let alone first-rate guilds. Fine gold guards were exceptionally rare in God's domain, and every one of them had the potential to reach Tier 5. If they were provided enough resources, fine gold guards could have up to a 40% chance of completing their promotion to Tier 5. Even among the various superpowers, Tier 5 combatants were apex beings. Every one of them was a priceless treasure. Of course, Tier 5 NPCs were even stronger than Tier 5 players. To suppress a single Tier 5 NPC, one would need several players of the same tier. And now, he had 28 fine gold guards standing before him, waiting for his commands. Chapter 2390, Powerful Guard Team 10 Saints Empire, Demon Wolf Mountain Range. After nearly 2 days of fervent work, Xueqi had produced 50 Crimson Sunsets. When he handed them to Liang Jing, he instructed her to keep 20 sets to gradually auction off in the Star Moon Adventure Alliance, while the rest would be given to Zero Wing's core members. These core members would lead their own grinding teams in the Cold Spring Forest, helping to alleviate the lack of manpower in that area. Xueqi had taken a break from crafting the advanced mana set equipment after giving his new stock to Liang Jing, and he had made his way back to the Demon Wolf Mountain Range with his 28 newly upgraded fine gold guards. Although the Crimson Sunset would help resolve Zero Wing's need for manpower in the Cold Spring Forest, it was a temporary solution. Moreover, Xueqi was the only person capable of producing the Crimson Sunsets, and he couldn't forge enough of them for Zero Wing's members to secure a firm foothold in the Cold Spring Forest. He needed to take care of the root of this problem. The simplest method to do so was to secure a portal to the Western Continent and acquire a large amount of the Western Continent's resources. Crafting level 100+ weapons and equipment in God's domain was an arduous task, especially for secret silver rank and above. The required materials were very rare, and obtaining them in bulk was a major challenge. However, through their research, the forgers of Xueqi's previous life had discovered that they could replace some of the rare materials the Eastern Continent's forgers needed to craft level 100+ secret silver and better weapons and equipment with some of the Western Continent's specialty materials. Likewise, some of the Eastern Continent's specialty materials could replace some of the materials the Western Continent's forgers needed. Not only had this discovery allowed the superpowers that could travel between the continents to earn tons of resources and coins, but they had also been able to acquire level 100+ weapons and equipment far sooner than their competitors. Since the various superpowers that had access to intercontinental travel had yet to realize this and were simply using their advantage to earn resources and coins, Xueqi had to strike while the iron was hot. If he waited until these superpowers learned this secret, it had become far more challenging to purchase the Western Continent's specialty materials in bulk. These specialty materials were essential to crafting level 100+ weapons and equipment at secret silver rank and higher, and if this secret got out, the various powers would try to collect and hoard the materials, rather than sell them. If Xueqi waited too long, he'd only be able to purchase materials from independent players and adventurer teams, which would limit his collection rate. After piloting the Crimson Dragon flying ship through the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's outer region for about 15 minutes, Xueqi finally located Kola and his team, who were engaged in a battle against several hundred battle wolves. After the past 2 days of grinding in the mountain range, Kola and the others had risen to level 101. If the various Tier 2 experts heard that this team could gain a full level every 2 days, they'd be incredibly jealous. However, Kola and his team weren't having an easy time against these battle wolves, especially as they fought the alphas, the two-headed battle wolves. Two-headed battle wolf, demonic creature, Great Lord, level 108 HP 270, 000, 000/270, 000, although the two-headed battle wolves had average HP for monsters of their rank and level. These monsters possessed the dark battle wolf's bloodline. Their defense and agility were just as high as actual bloodline creatures, and their combat standards were on par with the Trial Tower's 5th floor. If a Tier 2 peak expert tried to take on a two-headed battle wolf, they wouldn't last more than a few exchanges. Furthermore, the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's wolves tended to move in packs of 300 to 400, and around 24 two-headed battle wolves led each pack. Although the rest of the battle wolves were only Lord-ranked monsters, they could even pose a threat to Tier 3 players when a dozen of them worked together. Although Kola and his companions had reached Tier 3, they still had to be careful, or members of the team would fall. The team had yet to upgrade their weapons and equipment and had to rely on their epic weapons and equipment to support them in the fight. If Kola and his team had Tier 3 standard equipment, they'd have no issues taking a pack of battle wolves out. Check it out! The guild leader is back. Blackie was excited when he noticed the approaching Crimson Dragon flying ship. With only 24 players, their team had faced plenty of trouble while fighting these battle wolves over the past 2 days. Not even the magical class players' powerful AoE attacks could alleviate the pressure. These battle wolves were too smart. Once they sensed a player casting an AoE spell, they split up, preventing the spell from hitting too many of them. But if Xueqi joined the battle wolves would be much easier to defeat. As the team members looked up at the flying ship, they saw over 24 figures jump from the ship's deck. Every one of those figures' frightening auras made Kola and his companions' hearts skip a beat. NPCs. How are these NPCs so strong? The team was shocked and confused as they stared at the Tier 3 NPCs that had disembarked. The idea of challenging ordinary Tier 3 NPCs no longer fazed them now that they were Tier 3 as well. They had superior combat standards, after all. However, even Yen Tianqing shuddered when he saw the 28 Tier 3 NPCs that had jumped from the Crimson Dragon flying ship. His instincts even warned him to flee. Before Kola and his companions could react, the personal guards charged at the surrounding battle wolves. Taking the lead, the dozen or so melee NPCs dispersed the crowding wolves with their charge instantly. They even sent the Great Lord ranked two-headed battle wolves flying. The magical class NPCs then followed with a round of spells, each dealing over -1 million damage. The Lord-ranked battle wolves lost 1/3 of their HPs in that single bombardment, while the Great Lords had lost 1/10 of their HPs. The ferocity of the Fine Gold Guard's attacks easily outshone Iluofei's, a Tier 3 magical class player. After about 3 minutes, the 300+ Lord-ranked battle wolves and 20+ Great Lord-ranked two-headed battle wolves had been slain, leaving only a bunch of items behind. Kola and the others were dumbfounded. Normally, they needed over an hour to defeat a battle wolf pack, yet these 28 NPCs had done so in 3 minutes. The difference between their combat power was massive. From his position on the Crimson Dragon flying ship, Xueqi leveled from 104 to 105 after the battle ended, crossing the first minor threshold after level 100. Where did you find so many powerful NPCs, guild leader? Kola asked once Xueqi had descended from the flying ship. Yen Tianqing and the others were just as curious, waiting for Xueqi's reply. An ordinary Tier 3 NPC could serve as a small city's magistrate in God's domain, yet Xueqi had managed to employ so many of them, and every one of them was extraordinarily strong. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. From what Kola and the others could tell, 5 or 6 of these NPCs would be more than enough to annihilate their team of 24. If they had these 28 NPCs help, they could explore the Demon Wolf Mountain range without issue. How could I possibly afford the help of Tier 3 NPCs? These are our guild's personal guards, Xueqi said, chuckling. Personal guards? The explanation stunned Yan Tianxing. How is that possible? Not even Tier 3 personal guards can be this powerful. Yan Tianxing had encountered the guild's Tier 3 personal guards before, and he had been confident of putting up a fight against the guild's Tier 3 secret silver guards. If he faced any of the personal guards standing behind Xueqi, however, he'd be able to do nothing but flee. Of course, these aren't ordinary Tier 3 personal guards. They are all fine gold guards, Xueqi continued with a grin. Chapter 2391. Pioneering Benefit Fine Gold Guards. These are all fine gold guards? Kola and the others gasped and stared with wide eyes at the 28 personal guards behind Xueqi. They all knew how rare fine gold guards were. Not even some first-rate guilds had a single fine gold guard at this stage of the game. And at most, the various superpowers had one or two. The various superpowers treated their fine gold guards like family heirlooms, and when these personal guards reached Tier 3, they'd be treated as a part of the guild's foundation. Fine gold guards were incredibly powerful. Even at Tier 2, they could suppress Tier 2 apex experts of the same level, and they'd only grow stronger at Tier 3. And yet, Xueqi informed them that the 28 personal guards behind him were all fine gold rank. You're too vicious, guild leader. If we stationed these fine gold guards in the Cold Spring Forest, they'd likely frighten the various superpowers to death, Blackie said, his eyes glowing as he gazed at the fine gold guards. Compared to the various superpowers' shock when they had found out that these players had reached Tier 3, the fact that Zero Wing had 28 fine gold guards would be devastating. Every one of these Tier 3 fine gold guards had even greater combat power than Tier 3 apex experts. In fact, one of these fine gold guards could take on 2 apex experts at once. Needless to say, these fine gold guards would easily overwhelm peak experts. Now that Zero Wing had so many fine gold guards, the various superpowers would have to seriously consider the potential losses before moving against Zero Wing, even when their experts reach Tier 3. All right, let's focus on completing the quest, Xueqi said, chuckling. These 28 fine gold guards might deter the various superpowers from attacking, but if Zero Wing wanted to become truly powerful, it would need to rely on players and resources. There were limits to what a personal guard could accomplish, after all. Right. Our quest. With these 28 fine gold guards, we can now raid the wolf dens we avoided earlier. Kola exclaimed. Their team had only dared to attack the battle wolves in the outer region, one pack at a time, but now that they had 28 fine gold guards to help, they could raid the battle wolves' dens. Not only could they collect the mana strands more quickly, but their leveling speed would also skyrocket. No, we're not going to the dens. We'll move to the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner area, Xueqi said, shaking his head as he gestured to the mountains in the distance. There were a lot of battle wolves in the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's outer region, but very few of these monsters were great lords or higher. Even with the fine gold guards, they wouldn't be able to collect the necessary mana strands fast enough. They'd be cutting it close if they stayed in the outer region. The inner region might be more dangerous, but there were far more great lords available in the area, which would allow the team to collect mana strands far more quickly. Guild leader, the inner region is full of level 110 plus monsters, including plenty of great lords and mythic monsters, Yan Tianxing said worriedly. Monsters gained a significant basic attribute boost with each level after level 100, and the monsters in the Demon Wolf Mountain range had even greater combat standards than their counterparts in other areas of God's domain. If their team accidentally encountered a level 110 plus mythic monster in the inner region, they'd risk annihilation, even if they had the help of 28 fine gold guards. They had only recently reached level 101, and the personal guards on average were only level 103, with a few at level 104. Relax. We're only going to explore the border between the inner and outer regions, Xueqi said. Besides, we don't just have 28 fine gold guards on our side. To prove his point, Xueqi pulled 2 summon guard scrolls from his bag and summoned Kite and Anna. After questing on their own for a while, Kite and Anna had reached level 108 and 109, respectively. They were only slightly lower leveled than the monsters in the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner region. The team relaxed when they saw Kite and Anna's levels. Although neither of the NPCs had crossed the level 110 threshold, they all knew how powerful these two were. Both had dark gold rank growth potential and were far more powerful than the fine gold guards. With the 30 personal guards, the team was fully capable of raiding level 110 plus Grand Lords. Following which, the team climbed aboard the Crimson Dragon flying ship and made their way toward the Demon Wolf mountain ranges inner region. A white mist and constant snowstorms bombarded the inner region throughout the year, limiting visibility. Even Tier 3 players couldn't see farther than 400 yards away. If players were not careful, they could easily fall prey to monster ambushes. However, Xueqi was relatively familiar with the Demon Wolf mountain ranges inner region, and he piloted his flying ship toward one of the snow-capped forests in the area. Not only was visibility here much better than in other areas of the inner region, but these monsters only ranged between level 110 and 112. Moreover, the wolf packs in the forest tended to keep their distance from each other, so they wouldn't have to worry about attracting too many monsters while they fought. Cola, I want your group to gather the mobs. Tianqing, your group will lure the alpha away from the main group. Everyone else, prioritize the mobs, then target the alpha once they're dead. Xueqi said as he watched a nearby pack. B/B. Two-headed Frostwolf. Demonic creature, Great Lord. Level 110 HP 290, 000, 000/290, 000, 000. Frostwolf Chieftain. Demonic creature, Grand Lord. Level 112 HP 750, 000, 000/750, 000, 000. The wolf pack they faced only had around 200 members or so, 40 of which were Great Lords, and one was a Grand Lord. An ordinary Tier 3 team would have trouble with this pack, but taking these wolves down should be easy for them. Cola, Turtledove, and Yi Wumian immediately split up and approached the pack from different directions. They herded the wolves into one big group before Yen Tianqing, Flying Shadow, and the rest of the assassins on the team ambushed the Frostwolf Chieftain, securing its aggro and luring it away from the pack's protection. As soon as the Frostwolf Chieftain and the pack were separated, Anna and the other magical classes on the team bombarded the Frostwolves with their spells. The remaining melee members then formed a defensive line, preventing the Frostwolves from reaching the ranged players. After 24 rounds of attacks, only the Great Lord-ranked two-headed Frostwolves remained standing. The rest of the Frostwolves lay dead in the snow. With them down, a significant portion of the pressure on the melee classes lifted. After another 10 minutes, every Frostwolf had died, except for the Frostwolf Chieftain. The team's experience bars had risen by a large chunk after killing over 200 Frostwolves, which was a much faster leveling speed than what they had enjoyed in the outer region. They had also acquired 14 mana strands from the Frostwolves. Once Cola claimed the Frostwolf Chieftain's aggro from Yen Tianqing, the team finished the Grand Lord off in less than 5 minutes. Not only did the Frostwolf Chieftain contribute another mana strand, but it also dropped more than 20 items as it died, one of which was a piece of level 105 fine gold equipment. Naturally, the team was excited about their results. After 2 days of endless grinding in the Demon Wolf mountain ranges outer region, the best loot that had dropped was a few pieces of level 100 secret silver equipment. Yet after killing one Frostwolf Chieftain, they had obtained a piece of level 105 fine gold equipment, 2 ranks better than their best prior loot. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. We've gotten lucky. This Frostwolf Chieftain dropped a piece of the Snowfrost set, a fine gold set equipment for magical class players, Xueqi said, smiling at the level 105 fine gold ranked cloth armor he had picked up. The complete set can be used until level 110. Fine gold set equipment was extremely rare after level 100. The standard equipment for Tier 3 players was limited to fine gold equipment after level 100. Very few experts would be fortunate enough to equip a full fine gold set equipment. Aside from the Snowfrost set piece, the Frostwolf Chieftain had dropped 2 pieces of level 105 secret silver equipment. This was definitely a benefit of pioneering the area. Normally, a Grand Lord like the Frostwolf Chieftain wouldn't drop such abundant loot. Guild Leader, since the Frostwolf Chieftain drops pieces of the Snowfrost set, it should drop pieces of other level 105 fine gold set equipment. Based on the results of our earlier scouting efforts, there are several Frostwolf Chieftains nearby. We should kill them all, Yen Tianqing suggested. Everyone, get ready. Cola, lure another Frostwolf Chieftain our way, Xueqi said, nodding. Chapter 2392. Level skyrockets with Xueqi's command. Cola eagerly left to lure another Frostwolf Chieftain. Meanwhile, The rest of the team got into their battle formations with just as much enthusiasm. Although they had reached Tier 3, most of them wore the same equipment they had when they had reached level 100. They didn't even have many pieces of level 100 fine gold equipment on them, much less level 100 dark gold equipment. They had obtained the majority of their level 100 fine gold equipment during their promotion quests. Their epic weapons and equipment might still have been useful at level 100, but the items hadn't grown any stronger after that point. As they continued to level up, these epic weapons and equipment pieces would become increasingly ineffective. If they could get their hands on level 105 fine gold set equipment now, not only would it significantly increase their basic attributes, but they'd also become strong enough to raid level 100 super large-scale team dungeons. Level 100 super large-scale team dungeons were a major turning point for God's Domain's dungeons because they dropped level 100 plus dark gold and epic ranked weapons and equipment. Most importantly, they dropped Tier 3 skill and spell books. They hadn't really understood the importance of skills and spells when they had been Tier 2 players, treating them as supplementary tools for combat. They had mainly relied on their basic attributes, combat techniques, and combat standards in battle. However, they had realized that ideology was no longer useful after reaching Tier 3. Tier 3 skills and spells were no less important than powerful combat techniques. With a player's mana body, Tier 3 skills and spells would display far more power than Tier 2 skills and spells ever could. This was why, despite their inferior combat standards, Tier 3 NPCs could so easily suppress Tier 3 players of the same level. It wasn't a matter of different basic attributes, but the difference in how many Tier 3 spells and skills one had. If they could learn a large number of Tier 3 skills and spells as well, their combat power would reach new highs. Even if they encountered Tier 3 experts with greater combat standards, they'd be able to defeat their opponents. Meanwhile, after fighting alongside the personal guards, Kola and his companions handled the second Frostwolf pack much easier than the first. This time, they hadn't even needed to lure the Frostwolf chieftain away. They had simply bombarded the Grand Lord and its subordinates together. In the end, the team had annihilated the 200-plus Frostwolves in around a dozen minutes. Although the Frostwolf chieftain hadn't dropped any pieces of the Snowfrost set this time, it had dropped the gloves for the Frostwolf set, a 9-piece, level 105 fine gold set equipment for plate armor classes. When the team's plate armor classes saw the Frostwolf set's attributes, a passionate flame burned in their eyes. Crap! That's not fair! This Frostwolf set is so much better than the Snowfrost set. Its 6-piece set effect increases strength by 20% and the set's level limit to level 120. The full 9-piece set effect even upgrades the set by 1 rank. Blackie exclaimed. Nothing was more troublesome than obtaining level 100-plus weapons and equipment for Tier 3 experts like them. Based on the fact that the Frostwolf set could be used until level 120, the complete set ranked at the top even among level 100-plus dark gold set equipment. With the full Frostwolf set, a Tier 3 player would have the basic attributes to even rival ordinary Tier 3 NPCs. The Frostwolf set? Xueqi was just as shocked when he saw the plate armor gloves that radiated a faint, white glow. The Demon Wolf Mountain Range's Frostwolf set had been quite famous in his previous life. It had been considered one of the top 10 level 120 dark gold set equipment in God's Domain. Even the various superpowers old monsters had coveted the set. However, the Frostwolf set was normally so rare that one could only obtain the pieces by killing the monsters in the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's core, and yet, it had dropped for his team in the inner region. This was unbelievable. Xueqi's heart started to pound. He immediately instructed the team to hunt for more Frostwolf chieftains. If they could collect a few Frostwolf sets, they'd have no problems raiding level 100 super large-scale team dungeons. The team continued to grind for 7 consecutive days, during which they had practically killed every Frostwolf chieftain in the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner region at least once. As a result, Xueqi had risen from level 105 to 107, while his companions had leveled from 101 to 104. If the various superpowers experts discovered their leveling speed, they'd die from envy. Although the Frostwolves provided a lot of EXP, unfortunately, the Frostwolf set's drop rate was quite low. Even after using Divine Providence before the killing blow, the team had only completed 3 Frostwolf sets. The team had also managed to collect 5 of the Cloth Armor Snowfrost sets, and 5 of the Leather Armor Shadowfrost sets. Aside from the set equipment, the team had obtained over 1,000 pieces of level 100 and level 105 secret silver equipment, a bountiful harvest. They could now afford to gear a 100-man team fully. As for their quest's required mana, They had collected 956 strands in total. They were only a few dozen strands away from their target, and they should have no issues completing their quest in time. Meanwhile, the leasing auction for Stone Forest City's private houses had netted massive profits for Zero Wing. On average, each private house had been rented for 150,000 credits per week. After holding several leasing auctions, Zero Wing had earned over 1 billion credits in profit. Not only had this alleviated Zero Wing's desperate need for funds, but it had also allowed the Heaven's Rumble Training Center to set up quite a few virtual combat platforms in Fenglin City, which in turn enabled the guild to recruit more capable internal members. Guild leader, when will you be done with your quest? Recently, Starlink has been expanding rapidly. It also has support from Demon Palace now. Not only has it recruited plenty of experts, but we're seeing more players ambush our members in the fields. Many of the Dark Knight Empire's powers have also chosen to side with Starlink. Our members are even too afraid to set foot in a neutral map, and to make matters worse, the situation has started to affect our development in Star Moon Kingdom, Liang Jing reported, clearly frustrated. Although they had lured many experts into joining the Star Moon Adventure Alliance with the Crimson Sunsets, Starlink had countered this by offering even greater benefits. Now, members of Starlink's adventure alliances could purchase the Demonic Hell World Special Legacy for far cheaper. The new benefit had attracted many experts. As a result, Starlink had effectively restricted Zero Wing's resource income, which limited the guild members' leveling efficiency since they needed those materials to brew potions and craft special tools that were essential for grinding in high-level neutral maps. Although Zero Wing could purchase these materials through the Secret Chamber of Commerce, it needed coins to do so, which was by no means a worthwhile trade. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU, I understand. I'm almost done here. If we need coins, start leasing Stone Forest City's private houses for coins, rather than credits. That should give us enough to hold out for some time, Xueqi decided after giving the matter some thought. I'll return as soon as I've finished my quest. Liang Jing had no choice but to nod and follow Xueqi's instructions. While Xueqi had conversed with Liang Jing, an abandoned ancient magic array lit with a colorful brilliance in a forbidden land on the eastern continent. As the rainbow of lights faded, several figures emerged from the magic array. Despite the very thin mana in the forbidden land, a dense layer of mana enveloped these several individuals. In fact, due to their arrival, the surrounding mana density had substantially increased. So, this is the eastern continent. Chapter 2393, Demon Wolf Mountain Range's Secret Demon Wolf Mountain Range, Howling Wind Canyon. Xueqi and his team stood on the mountainside, fighting fervently to fend off a large pack of demon wolves coming up from the foot of the mountain. This pack was larger than any of the frost wolf packs they had encountered before, with thousands of members. Moreover, every demon wolf was level 110 or higher, including level 114 demon wolves. Many of these beasts were great lords, and there were a few grand lords in the pack. None of the team members could afford to rest lest the demon wolf pack overwhelm them. If not for the fine gold guards blocking the only path up the mountain, and Anna using a magic array to suppress the demon wolves, these beasts would have devoured Xueqi and his team long ago. Guild leader, this is an amazing place to grind. Pack after pack of these demon wolves are running at us. Our leveling speed here is even faster than when we were grinding frost wolves, Blackie said, grinning when he saw another pack of demon wolves approach the foot of the mountain. I bet we can even reach level 105 in less than a day of grinding here. Compared to when they had grinded frost wolves, their current leveling speed was on an entirely different level. They had invested a lot of time in their hunt for frost wolves, but they didn't need to chase down demon wolves, which regularly called for reinforcements. They simply needed to station the melee fine gold guards on the front line while the rest of the team attacked from a safe distance. These beasts are at least level 110. If we stay here, we can maintain our leveling speed until we reach the same level. If we do, we won't even have to fear the various superpowers experts when they catch up to Tier 3, Yan Tianqing said, his eyes glowing with excitement. It was true that Zero Wing had gained a massive advantage when they had reached Tier 3 so early, but Yan Tianqing understood that the various superpowers had far more and stronger experts than his guild. Zero Wing's advantage over the various superpowers was only temporary. Once the superpowers experts finished their promotion quests as well, Zero Wing would be at a disadvantage. He had constantly been concerned about this. Zero Wing's feud with Starlink was still happening, and the various powers invading from the other worlds couldn't be underestimated. Every one of these powers was eyeing the resources in level 100 neutral maps and Stone Forest City. However, this expedition had alleviated some of his concerns. After reaching Tier 3 in God's domain, the basic attributes players earned with each level up wouldn't have as much of an impact on a player's performance as it used to. Rather, weapons, equipment, and combat standards would have a more prominent effect on players' combat power. However, by leveling up quickly, Zero Wings Peak experts would have more time for high-ranked quests, which would allow them to upgrade their weapons, equipment, and combat standards sooner. With a level advantage, they had a chance of contending with the various superpowers experts and stabilizing Zero Wings' position. How can a level 100 neutral map have such a wonderful place? Xueqi said, chuckling when he saw his teammates' passionate expressions after Yan Tianqing had mentioned the possibility of reaching level 110 so soon. There's no lack of monsters in this area, but remaining here will be taxing on our stamina and concentration. We can't stay for too long. Xueqi had already known about this area and its demon wolves, but he hadn't led the team here earlier because of the atmosphere's burden on players' stamina and concentration. Considering those factors, their grinding efficiency here wasn't that much better than grinding Frostwolf packs. Moreover, the Frostwolves dropped better loot than Demon Wolves. However, Zero Wings' current predicament wouldn't permit him to remain in the Demon Wolf mountain range for long, which had led to his decision to grind the Demon Wolves. The team members couldn't help but glance at their stamina and concentration gauges, and just as Xueqi had warned them, they noticed that they were consuming twice as much as they had while grinding Frostwolves. They really wouldn't be able to fight the Demon Wolves for very long. Of course, the environment here isn't all bad. It does increase our stamina and concentration consumption rates, but it is also the perfect pace to adapt to our mana bodies and train with our Tier 3 skills and spells. You'll rarely find such an opportunity elsewhere, Xueqi said, smiling when he saw everyone's disappointment. The Demon Wolf mountain range was no ordinary forbidden land. It was a prized location for players to train after reaching Tier 3, especially since it was infested with berserk demon wolves. Not only was the map full of chaotic energy, which was much stronger here, but that energy also disrupted mana. It was the perfect situation to help players adapt to their mana bodies. The mana body was the biggest difference between Tier 2 and Tier 3. The mana body could also be referred to as a player's mana pool. Players with mana bodies controlled mana in an entirely different way than players without. At Tier 2, players used the ambient mana to power their skills and spells, but once they reached Tier 3, they'd use the mana inside themselves as well. This was why Tier 3 skills and spells were so much more powerful than those at Tier 2. However, using the mana within one's body wasn't easy. Players would need a certain level of understanding of their own mana body. Meanwhile, players would struggle to use the ambient mana in environments with chaotic energy, and as such, they'd be forced to rely on the mana within them. This was why such environments were so helpful to players as they adapted to their mana bodies. Indeed, I can sense my mana a little more clearly now. The effects aren't as apparent, but I'm finding it easier to use my own mana now, Xueqi said. After she had reached Tier 3, something had felt wrong when she had cast her Tier 3 spells, but she had brushed it off, assuming it was simply due to how unfamiliar she was with her Tier 3 physique. However, it seemed that sense of wrongness had been a result of her lack of control with her mana body, which had limited her ability to cast her Tier 3 spells. When the rest of the team realized this, they adjusted their approach as they attacked the charging demon wolves. They started to focus on their own mana while they attacked, using this opportunity to adapt. After 2 hours of practice, the team saw significant improvements to their completion rates with their Tier 3 skills and spells. On average, the team members increased their completion rates by 4%, enough to push many of them across the 80% threshold. Xueqi, Zhao Yueru, and Alluring Summer improved the most, with all three reaching past an 85% spell completion rate. Everyone on the team grew ecstatic. They had never realized that the Howling Wind Canyon would be such an extraordinary training ground. Even Xueqi managed to learn some new tricks. He had only had a bronze-ranked mana body in the past, and now that he had an epic mana body, the way he conducted mana had changed. Inspired, he could now manipulate his body with greater precision. He even gained a new understanding of his physical control in the real world. By the time the team only needed 19 more mana strands, Kola and his companions had reached level 105, crossing the first minor threshold past level 100. Without hesitation, Xueqi handed the 3 Frostwolf sets to Kola, Turtledove, and Shadow Sword, which gave the three a large boost to their basic attributes. The defense and basic attributes are so high. I feel like I can even tank a level 110 mythic monster now, Cola exclaimed as he examined his newfound strength. Xueqi also gave the Frost Shadow and Snow Frost sets to Yan Tianqing, Iluofei, and the rest. With their new equipment, these players' basic attributes were only slightly lower than those of ordinary Tier 3 NPCs. Armed with appropriate equipment, the team slew the incoming demon wolves far faster than before. As a result, they collected mana at a much faster rate. Guild leader, my group is almost out of stamina and concentration, Blackie announced, sounding tired. My group's running out of gas as well, Yan Tianqing added. Although the team members all had high-ranked mana bodies, they couldn't completely resist the effects of the violent mana in the area. If players with a bronze mana body tried to take their place, they would have run out ages ago. Let's retreat for now since everyone's exhausted, Xueqi decided after seeing that they only needed 3 more mana strands to complete their quest. They could easily collect the rest on their way back to Alba Grey. Xueqi then retrieved the Crimson Dragon flying ship for everyone to board and rest. Once they boarded, the team found rooms to rest in and logged out of the game. Meanwhile, Xueqi piloted the flying ship back to the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's outer area. Once he had reached the safety of the outer area, Xueqi received a call request from Liang Jing. Has Starlink done something again? Xueqi asked. It hadn't been long since the last time she had called. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. There's nothing new from Starlink, but I just received a message from Chairman Xiao regarding a problem in the Heaven's Rumble Training Center. He says that a group of people has shown up demanding a challenge, and they've already injured quite a few of our advanced disciples, Liang Jing said. Challengers? Xueqi asked. Has Master Lei Bao not taken care of them? The Heaven's Rumble Training Center had no lack of challenges since so many people wanted to use Heaven's Rumble as a stepping stone to earn fame in Fenglin City overnight. However, Xueqi normally let Xiao Yu and Lei Bao take care of these issues. I've heard that Master Lei Bao lost in just 3 moves. Chairman Xiao only contacted me after he had run out of options, Liang Jing said. They even defeated Lei Bao? The news surprised Xueqi. Who is the challenger? Since he had begun training with Zero Wing, Lei Bao had grown considerably stronger. Even among Apex internal force experts, few were his match. No one knows, and the training center is in an uproar over it. Chairman Xiao is hoping that you can send Fire Dance to take care of this, Liang Jing said. No need. I'll visit the training center myself, Xueqi said, shaking his head. Fire Dance and the others were still in the midst of their Tier 3 promotion quest, so leaving their virtual gaming cabins wasn't convenient right now. Moreover, Xueqi was curious to find out who was strong enough to defeat Lei Bao. Chapter 2394, Powerful Assault Fenglin City, Heaven's Rumble Training Center. As Xueqi arrived at Heaven's Rumble Training Center's top-floor training hall, he was greeted by the sight of a large number of people. They were split into 2 groups. A large group of Heaven's Rumble's disciples and a smaller group of 3 men and 2 women. The training center's members wore tense expressions as they stared at the smaller group on the opposite side of the hall in fear. The 3 men and 2 women appeared quite young. The oldest didn't look like he had even reached 30, while the youngest of these strangers seemed to be in their early 20s. However, these 5 visitors' auras made them stand out. The eldest of the group, a man with even more bulk than Feng Mingyu, the strongest member of the Feng family's younger generation, felt like a volcano. When Xueqi entered the hall, everyone's attention shifted to him. Hallmaster, Lei Bao greeted Xueqi with an apologetic expression. Xueqi had requested that Lei Bao serve as the Heaven's Rumble Training Center's acting hallmaster and continue to supply training resources. The older man had even received quite a few bottles of S-rank nutrient fluids, and yet, a bunch of youngsters had defeated him in 3 moves, and he had been forced to request Xueqi's presence. How are your injuries? Xueqi asked, noticing that Lei Bao seemed a bit weaker than normal. It's nothing serious, just a few minor sprains. I'll be fine after some rest, Lei Bao said. However, you should be careful. These people aren't ordinary fighters, especially the young man leading the group. His strength is inhuman. He even took my full-powered punch and avoided injury. At this point, Lei Bao was shocked and afraid of the gorilla-like youth leading the small group of visitors. He was extraordinarily strong, Not even a neutralizing grandmaster could take his full-powered hit and emerge unscathed. However, when he had punched that youth, it had felt as if he had hit a steel wall. While Lei Bao informed Xuefeng of the recent events, the young woman in a red dress beside the gorilla youth walked over. "We meet again, Hall Master Shi," the young woman said, smiling faintly. "I hadn't had the chance to introduce myself the last time we met. My name is Feng Shihan, one of mythology's vice guild leaders. I am also the Qilin Corporation's representative. I've come to negotiate a partnership." Mythology. Liang Jing stared at the young woman with wide eyes. Liang Jing was no longer a stranger to the virtual gaming world. After joining Zero Wing, she had thoroughly researched both the virtual gaming world and God's domain in particular. She knew about mythology, one of the 5 great super guilds in the virtual gaming world. Mythology stood at the apex of the virtual gaming world. However, Liang Jing had never dreamed that the Feng family would have connections with the Super Guild. Even Xuefeng gave Feng Shihan a surprised look. However, he wasn't surprised to hear about mythology, but because he had never heard about Feng Shihan being one of the Super Guild's vice guild leaders during his previous life. Partnership? What kind of partnership? Xuefeng asked. Mythology's influence in God's domain goes without saying, and I'm sure you can see for yourself the guild's training capabilities, Feng Shihan said as she gestured to the gorilla of a man behind her. Smiling, she continued, "Mythology intends to develop on the eastern continent, and of the various guilds on that side of God's domain, we've deemed that Zero Wing has the most potential. We only require 51% of Zero Wing's shares, and in exchange, the Qilin Corporation will provide capital, while Mythology will provide further training for Heaven's Rumble's members. We'll help your training center rise to fame, which will allow Zero Wing to recruit more talented members." "And if I refuse?" Xuefeng asked. "I'm afraid that isn't up to you, Hall Master Shi," Feng Shihan said nonchalantly. "I know that you've recently become a neutralizing grandmaster and have successfully blocked one of my father's full-powered blows, so I'm sure you're quite confident in your strength. I'm also sure that you're confident that no fighter in Fenglin City can defeat you. But your strength is nothing before mythology." As soon as Feng Shihan said that, the gorilla youth behind her stepped forward, the intensity of his aura skyrocketing. His muscles bulged, tearing his shirt to reveal the dark copper skin underneath. The youth's aura became twice as strong, and the cold killing intent he radiated even made Lei Bao shudder. "A Henglian Grandmaster!" Lei Bao exclaimed. Training in the Henglian style was already exceptionally difficult, and very few people became Henglian masters. However, once someone mastered the style, they'd even be able to hold their ground against a neutralizing grandmaster. Lei Bao had only heard of Henglian grandmasters before. He could never have guessed that the young man before him, who hadn't even reached 30, would be a Henglian grandmaster. No, his aura doesn't feel complete. He should still be half a step away from becoming a grandmaster, Xuefeng calmly stated after observing the gorilla youth for a moment. "As expected of a neutralizing grandmaster, you have keen senses," Feng Shihan said, smiling. "No, Matt isn't a Henglian grandmaster. He's not quite mentally developed enough for that yet, but he'll have no issue taking on ordinary neutralizing grandmasters. Do you still refuse to cooperate, Hall Master Shi?" She had investigated Zero Wing thoroughly, with a focus on Stone Forest City. As a city in a level 100 neutral map, it was a treasure trove. Once she had learned about that fact, she had become resolved to obtain Zero Wing, no matter the cost. With Stone Forest City under her control, she could rise through mythology's ranks. When he heard Feng Shihan's statement, Xiaoyu began to despair. He hadn't realized the Feng family was powerful enough to elicit the help of a half-step Henglian grandmaster. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Although Matt wasn't an actual Henglian grandmaster, he'd have an overwhelming advantage over ordinary neutralizing grandmasters in an official competition. If Xuefeng lost to the older man, the Heaven's Rumble Training Center would be finished. He was the reason that the training center had grown to its current size and fame. If Xuefeng were defeated, Heaven's Rumble would lose everything. Liang Jing watched the exchange with a grim expression, as well. Zero Wing required the Heaven's Rumble Training Center to recruit talented members. Losing it would be a major hindrance to Zero Wing's development. "I won't make this too difficult for you, kid. I'll accept defeat if you can last 3 hits. If you can't, then you'll hand over Zero Wing's shares," Matt declared before his fist shot toward Xuefeng. Chapter 2395. Three Palms. Matt's sudden attack surprised everyone in the hall. Sure enough, he can't help himself. Feng Shihan pitied Shifeng when she noticed Matt's attack. Matt was incredibly talented, and after working with the Hell training system, the last training system mythology had created, his already violent tendencies had become more prominent. Now he was a combat maniac. Even in mythology, there were few people who could spar with Matt. With a neutralizing grandmaster before him, the man was naturally eager to spar with Shifeng. He had recently gotten closer to becoming a Honglian grandmaster and hadn't had the chance to test his strength properly. Before Shifeng made his decision was the best opportunity for Matt to force the younger man into a fight. Although stopping Matt wasn't impossible, Feng Shihan thought it was necessary for Shifeng to experience mythology's power. Lei Bao, who stood by Shifeng's side, felt stifled when he saw Matt's punch. This strike was completely different than the hits Matt had used during their fight. Not only did this punch break the sound barrier, but it also seemed impossible to avoid. Lei Bao thought he could even hear the Grim Reaper call his name. However, just as Matt's hit was about to land, Shifeng casually took a half-step back and rotated his right shoulder as if he had expected the attack. Almost as if an invisible barrier had manifested between them, Matt's punch harmlessly stopped a few centimeters away from Shifeng's shoulder. "What? Did I scare you?" Matt quipped when Shifeng hadn't made another move to stop him. "What happened to all of your confidence?" Matt was only a half-step Honglian grandmaster, and although he was more physically fit than ordinary neutralizing grandmasters, his mental processing couldn't compare. His senses and reaction speed were just as inferior to that of a neutralizing grandmaster. If a neutralizing grandmaster focused on evading his attacks, Matt would be helpless against them. In fact, if Lei Bao, a peak internal force master, had focused on evasion, their fight would have lasted a lot longer. This was why Matt had deliberately challenged Shifeng to last 3 of his punches. Otherwise, fighting Shifeng would be a waste of time. "Forget it, Matt. Hall Master Shi can't take your hits. I suggest you face each other in a race. At least that will give Hall Master Shi a chance at victory," the tall, short-haired woman behind Feng Shihan ridiculed. The woman's provocation enraged Heaven's Rumble's disciples. Even veteran neutralizing grandmasters couldn't help to match a half-step Honglian grandmaster's physical fitness, much less Shifeng, who had only recently become a neutralizing grandmaster. Asking Shifeng to take a direct hit from Matt was a joke. Xueqi began to move forward to advise Shifeng against falling into the woman's trap. If he fell for it and lost against Matt, Heaven's Rumble's reputation would be in tatters. "I never said I wasn't interested. I just don't think those terms are fair," Shifeng said, shaking his head. "I have to sell Zero Wing shares if you win, yet you'll just pack up and leave if you lose. What benefit do I get for accepting this challenge?" "That's simple. Head Instructor Shi, if you win, I'll give Zero Wing a 300 million loan, plus state-of-the-art training equipment for the Heaven's Rumble Training Center. I can guarantee that the equipment I have to offer rivals that in the country's top dojos and training centers," Feng Shihan declared, her lips curling into a wicked grin. She reacted as if she had been expecting Shifeng to ask, "State-of-the-art training equipment?" Xiao Yu's eyes glowed when he heard this. 300 million credits would be a massive boon to the Heaven's Rumble Training Center, but the state-of-the-art equipment would be far more important. The equipment Feng Shihan offered might not be worth 300 million credits, but it was impossible to purchase on the market. Only the supplier's partners had any access. In comparison, the best equipment available to the public was 2 generations behind, which was why ordinary training centers and dojos disciples couldn't hold a candle to those from top dojos and training centers. If the Heaven's Rumble Training Center could get its hands on this equipment, its facilities would undergo a qualitative transformation. In turn, this would make the training center more attractive to far more people. Shifeng didn't respond immediately, however. "What? You're still not satisfied?" Feng Shihan chuckled at Shifeng's silence. "If that's not enough, state your demands, Head Instructor Shi." She already had a good grasp on Heaven's Rumble Training Center situation. Although Lei Bao normally led the training center, and Heaven's Rumble's members received excellent training, it was nothing compared to the nation's top dojos and training centers, particularly when it came to its training facilities. If Heaven's Rumble acquired state-of-the-art equipment, its facilities would be an excellent promotional tool on their own, luring in far more members. Shifeng had no reason to reject her offer. Zero Wing desperately needed manpower, after all. Feng Shihan assumed that the only reason Shifeng hadn't jumped at her offer was that he wasn't confident in withstanding Matt's punches. Knowing this, she wouldn't give the younger man any excuses to refuse her challenge. Everyone in the hall thought the same. They had already witnessed Matt's power. Everyone would be impressed if Shifeng remained standing after taking a single hit, let alone 3. Since Miss Feng has asked, I only have one condition, Shifeng said, smiling. He must withstand 3 of my palm strikes as well. If you win, Zero Wing will sell its shares. If I win, I want 20 bottles of life potion. For a moment, shocked silence filled the training hall. Are you insane? The tall woman behind Feng Shihan blurted, staring at Shifeng. Hall master? Even Lei Bao gave the younger man an incredulous look. Honglian-style practitioners were not famed for their strength, but for their frightening defense. It was why a Honglian master would dare to fight a neutralizing grandmaster, yet refuse to acknowledge Apex internal force masters. Matt was only a half-step away from reaching grandmaster status in the Honglian style, and as such, his skin and bones were as solid as steel. Trying to injure him with human strength was an utter joke. Only bullets could break though his hide now. 20 life potions? Feng Shihan frowned. Life potions weren't like S-rank nutrient fluids. They contained an extraordinary amount of life force. Consuming 1 bottle of life potion would restore youth to an ordinary person, and the potions were in high demand among grandmaster martial artists. Even a major corporation like Qilin Corporation could only secure a small number of bottles. Despite being the Qilin Corporation's princess, Feng Shihan didn't even get that many life potions per year. If Miss Feng thinks this condition is too demanding, we can forget about this challenge, Shifeng mused, chuckling. Neither the credits nor the state-of-the-art equipment was a priority for Zero Wing and Heaven's Rumble right now. The organizations would only truly be able to develop further by improving the strength of their current combatants. The life potion was undoubtedly one of the quickest ways for Zero Wing and Heaven's Rumble to do so. As long as Zero Wing and Heaven's Rumble became strong enough in the future, obtaining state-of-the-art was entirely possible if they were willing to spend a little money. But that wasn't the case for the life potions. They were truly rare items. Not even Lu Xinglua, the Starline Corporation's heir, could acquire many life potions, much less Shifeng. Fine. I agree to your condition. Feng Shihan hissed. Smiling, she continued. But remember, you only have 3 palm strikes. Of course. Shifeng nodded. You really think you can win, kid? Grinning, Matt said, even if I stood here and let you hit me 20 times, you couldn't force me to take a single step back, much less 3. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. However, before Matt could say anything more, Shifeng walked up to him and thrust out his palm. The strike looked light and gentle from an outsider's perspective. It didn't look like it had the power to threaten anyone. That thrust didn't even look like it could injure an ordinary passerby, let alone Matt. However, just as Shifeng's palm was about to connect with his target, the movement changed, leaving 3 afterimages in its wake. Thud. A dull sound echoed throughout the hall, and Matt's face lost color until his complexion was a deathly pale. He stumbled 3 steps back, clutching his abdomen as he fell to his knees, unable to speak for a long moment. Chapter 2396. Initial display of strength. As Matt knelt, silence momentarily enveloped the entire training hall. The tall woman with short hair in particular wore a stiff expression, her mocking words forgotten. Impossible. Matt, what happened? Mythology's members were dumbfounded by their comrade's reaction. They were all quite familiar with Matt's strength and defense, but they also knew his personality. Thus, they knew this wasn't an act. Shifeng's palm strike had looked gentle. It hadn't even seemed powerful enough to injure an ordinary person, much less a Honglian expert like Matt. Yet after taking the hit, Matt had collapsed with his pale face twisted in pain. The strike had clearly left him with substantial injuries. Even Lei Bao and Heaven's Rumble's disciples gaped in shock, not to mention Feng Shihan's group. What did the Hall Master do? Heaven's Rumble disciples were confused. They had already witnessed Matt's strength earlier, when he had defeated Lei Bao in 3 moves. The man had such high defense that he had taken a full-powered blow from Lei Bao without issue, and yet, he couldn't cope with one of Shifeng's gentle palm strikes. Did that guy use some hidden weapon, Vice Guild leader? How else would he have hurt Matt? A male youth, who was as large as Feng Mingyu, quietly asked Feng Shihan. Aside from the old instructor, who wasn't in the hall, the strongest of Heaven's Rumble's visitors were Matt and Feng Shihan. Since Matt couldn't speak at that moment, only Feng Shihan could inform her companions of what Shifeng had done. The rest of Mythology's group nodded, agreeing with the male youth. They assumed that Shifeng must have cheated. No. He didn't just attack with one strike, but 3 instantaneous palm strikes, Feng Shihan said, watching Shifeng with an indescribably grim expression. Moreover, all 3 strikes hit the same location, so it looked like a single attack. His physical control has already reached the spiritualization realm. 3 palm strikes. How is that possible? Their leader's answer stunned Mythology's members. Ignoring the difficulty of striking the same location multiple times, executing 3 simultaneous attacks was an unbelievable feat. They couldn't even fathom what kind of mental and physical reaction speed one would need to accomplish it. That's right, I executed 3 palm strikes, as agreed, Shifeng said, not bothering to hide the truth. He was a little surprised to see Matt so pale, however. Not only does combining 3 attacks allow me to increase my raw power, but it also doubles my hit's penetrating power. To think you only received minor injuries. I'm impressed with your muscular defense. If you had come here a few days ago, I really wouldn't have been a match for you. Adjusting to his epic mana body in the Howling Wind Canyon had inspired him. After he had become a neutralizing grandmaster in the real world, his mind had begun to secrete hormones to fortify his physical prowess. His mental and physical reaction speeds, in particular, had significantly improved. But superior reaction speed wasn't enough for him to exhibit his full strength. His physical control wasn't yet perfect. However, by controlling the flow of mana in his epic mana body, he had come up with some combat techniques that would rely on his reaction speed. Although he couldn't replicate these techniques perfectly in the real world, he was able to exhibit a fraction of the technique's power. Even that fraction greatly increased his strength and penetrating power, allowing him to drive the force of his strikes toward Matt's organs. Not even an adult bear would escape such an attack unscathed. Although Matt was in incredible shape, he was only human. Once his pain had subsided to a bearable level, Matt stood, glaring at Shifeng with a hint of fear in his gaze. He abandoned any thought of fighting the younger man. "You very good. I've lost this challenge." Honglian-style practitioners were famed for their brute strength and defense. The only reason that they dared to clash with neutralizing grandmasters was their ability to take a hit without sustaining significant injuries. On the other hand, if they got lucky and landed a bow, they could knock out their opponent with a single hit. However, they'd have to flee from a neutralizing grandmaster like Shifeng, who could ignore their defense. Fighting such an individual would only spell their death. Still, the situation confused Matt. Aside from Shifeng, he had only ever taken such a serious blow from his old instructor. His instructor was an old monster who had become a neutralizing grandmaster several decades ago. The old instructor had also received help from plenty of state-of-the-art and medication to grow stronger. His strength had long since reached inhuman levels. In comparison, Shifeng was only in his early 20s. Just how did this young man become so powerful? In that case, will you fulfill your end of the bargain, Ms. Feng? Shifeng asked after Matt had admitted defeat. After his fight with Matt, Shifeng's mind spun. It wasn't because he had successfully executed a god's domain combat technique in the real world, but because of how impressed he was with Mythology's expert standards. He had never thought Mythology would be this powerful. If even Mythology could nurture such incredible fighters, other superpowers shouldn't be far behind. More than anything, Shifeng needed a large stock of life potions to nurture his own fitness, as well as help Lei Bao and Fire Dance become neutralizing grandmasters. Otherwise, Zero Wings operations in the real world would be in grave danger. The 3 palms, 1 strike technique might have looked simple, but it was extremely hard to execute. If Shifeng hadn't mentally prepared himself, and Matt hadn't simply stood there to take the hit, he wouldn't have been able to execute the technique. "I don't have 20 life potions on me right now, but I'll have someone deliver them to you before the end of tomorrow," Feng Shihan said, frowning. Shifeng's strength had drastically exceeded her expectations. He certainly couldn't be considered an ordinary neutralizing grandmaster. "We have other matters to tend to, so we will take our leave for now. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World." After saying so, Feng Shihan left with her subordinates, and Shifeng didn't try to stop her. Feng Shihan was the Qilin Corporation's princess. She couldn't afford to break a promise she made in public. After Feng Shihan's group left, cheers broke out in the training hall as the disciples celebrated. Everyone practically worshipped Shifeng's display, which had renewed their confidence in the Heaven's Rumble training center. Some of the normal members even considered applying to become true Heaven's Rumble disciples. However, the atmosphere in the luxury maglev car parked outside of the training center wasn't as cheerful. "We're just going to leave, Vice Guild Leader? I know we only came here to test Heaven's Rumble standards, but wasn't our main goal to compete with the training center virtually and steal its virtual combat platforms in Fenglin City? Sure, Feng might be strong, but it'll be a different story when we fight in a virtual combat platform. Not even Zero Wing's Black Flame will be a match for you with your strength as a Tier 3 player, much less Sure Feng," Matt complained. "No. We need to report this to the old instructor," Feng Shihan said, shaking her head. "No matter how you look at it, it's strange for someone as young as Sure Feng to be so powerful. I'm sure there's some big secret to his strength. If we can discover this secret, we'll gain far more authority in mythology. It might even be enough for me to become one of the headquarters' 3 great Vice Guild leaders." Chapter 2397, Ascension Realm, Fenglin City, Redstone Restaurant. Feng Shihan and her entourage stood before a man in one of the Redstone Restaurant's VIP rooms, which had an antique flair. The man sat cross-legged on the floor with his eyes closed. Despite the fact that half of the man's hair had already turned white, his facial features were that of a man in his early 40s. In truth, however, he was already over 70. Although this elderly man wasn't as large or robust as Matt and the others, his aura felt like that of an unshakable mountain. Standing in his presence, one couldn't help but revere the old man. This man was none other than Situ Qingtian, Feng Shihan and her companion's instructor. "Matt, is Sure Feng truly as powerful as Shihan described? Was he really able to combine the power of his attacks?" Situ Qingtian asked as he opened his eyes and looked at the younger man before him. "I'm sure of it. The moment after the first hit, his strike's penetrating power doubled. If I hadn't reacted quickly enough and diverted some of the force, he would have likely knocked me out," Matt said, nodding. Before today, he had only ever experienced that level of power from Situ Qingtian, and the memory of Shifeng's hits were still fresh in his mind. "Instructor, I investigated Shifeng thoroughly, and there were no reports of him possessing this kind of strength. He's only recently reached the Grandmaster realm and partially enhanced his mental capacity. He must have found something in God's domain that has allowed him to execute such a technique in the real world," Feng Shihan surmised. "It seems Zero Wing isn't so simple after all." "I must have many secrets," Situ Qingtian said. "I suspect this Shifeng has made considerable progress in the realms of truth. He's likely reached the Ascension Realm at the very least." "The Ascension Realm? How is that possible?" Matt exclaimed. Mythology had discovered the Realms of Truth combat system, which had profound principles, in God's domain. At first, some of the various superpowers had labeled the Realms of Truth as the spiritualization realm, and they had discovered that learning these principles allowed one to gain unbelievable control with combat techniques. Learning these principles was akin to engraving combat techniques on one's bones. Players that learned these principles and practiced them successfully could execute a combat technique with every movement. They could exhibit strength far beyond their natural potential. However, progressing through the Realms of Truth was an intense challenge. Even Matt, a genius, had barely begun, yet he was considered one of the most accomplished individuals in mythology. And now they discovered that Shifeng, who was much younger than Matt, had gone beyond, reaching the Ascension Realm. How could he allow himself to believe it? That is why I am sure Zero Wing has hidden many secrets. Mythology has expended a lot of manpower and resources to explore the Realms of Truth, yet we have barely uncovered some of the training methods, Situ Qingtian said, his interest in Zero Wing growing. Zero Wing must have obtained some clues relating to the Realms of Truth and uncovered detailed training methods. No individual could reach such a standard by themselves, otherwise. If that is true, we must obtain this secret, Feng Shihan declared, passion burning in her gaze. Mythology had constantly been searching for the Realms of Truth secrets, but the clues they had uncovered were few and vague. Needless to say, they had yet to discover any systematic training methods. If she could get her hands on Zero Wing's training system and combine it and mythology's research, not only could she improve her own combat standards, but she could also gain more authority within the guild. Vice Guild Leader, Zero Wing's roots on the eastern continent are too solid to shake right now. Especially now that it has Stone Forest City. I'm afraid that we won't be able to cause any significant damage. Even if we target the Heaven's Rumble Training Center, our results will likely be negligible. At worst, we'll slow Zero Wing's recruitment rate, but we won't be able to harm the guild's foundations directly, Matt anxiously said. He desperately wanted a Realms of Truth training system, as well. If he could progress further through the Realms of Truth, not only would he grow stronger in God's domain, but he'd also gain more combat power in the real world. Don't worry about it. Since we now know Zero Wing has obtained clues regarding the Realms of Truth, our guild will not let it out of our sight. I've read through the reports on Zero Wing. It seems the guild is at war with Starlink, and the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's Phoenix Rain is part of the reason it has held on for so long, Situ Qingtian calmly stated. If we can interfere and prevent Phoenix Rain from helping Zero Wing, I doubt the guild will last long against Starlink. Shirhan, visit the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and inform Ku Rong of our stance. I'm sure that old fellow will make the wise decision. I understand. I'll get it done once I return, Feng Shirhan said, nodding. She had thought of pressuring the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion too, but she was only a vice guild leader from one of mythology's many branch guilds. Although she had a good reputation in the guild, she had no authority to represent the guild in crucial matters. Now that she had permission, however, she didn't have to worry about any negative repercussions. Whether or not the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion would give in to her demands wasn't even a question. Mythology was one of the 5 great super guilds in God's domain. Even ordinary super guilds had to show it respect, not to mention a super first-rate guild like the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Meanwhile, in Zero Wing's main headquarters, once Shifeng received the 20 bottles of life potion from Feng Shirhan's subordinate, he gave 3 bottles to Lei Bao. He instructed the man to visit the extraordinary tower with the berserker Lei Bao had made for fun in God's domain. After his fight with Matt, Shifeng had an odd sense of impending danger. Although Zero Wing was developing smoothly in God's domain, it was far too weak in the real world, especially when it came to poaching talented fighters. The various superpowers had already begun to do so on a large scale. However, since Shifeng was so busy with his affairs in God's domain, he didn't have time to pay attention to Heaven's Rumble's development. If he wanted his training center to grow, he'd need another Grandmaster martial artist to defend it long-term. Among those working in Heaven's Rumble, Lei Bao was undoubtedly the closest to reaching the Grandmaster realm. After him, there were Fire Dance and the others. Lei Bao's physical fitness and control had already peaked, and he was only a step away from breaking into the Grandmaster realm. To make that final step, his mental capacity needed to undergo a qualitative transformation. Although training in the Extraordinary Tower wasn't nearly as effective as training in the Tower of 4 Gods, Lei Bao had a high chance of making that final step with the help of the life potions. Once he became a Grandmaster, Heaven's Rumble would grow at a frightening pace. The training center would also have a much better chance of resisting the various major corporations' harassment. After finishing with Lei Bao, Shifeng split another 10 life potions among Fire Dance, Violet Cloud, Cola, Shadow Sword, and Turtle Dove, the guild's experts that had already grasped internal force. The life potions should help them develop their physical fitness and mental capacity. Shifeng then drank one of the life potions before returning to his virtual gaming cabin and logging back into God's domain. He intended to open the portal to the Western continent as soon as possible. Only then could Zero Wing stabilize its foothold in God's domain and secure enough resources and strength to develop the Heaven's Rumble Training Center. By the time Shifeng re-entered God's domain, Cola and the others were, for the most part, rested and ready. The team resumed grinding in the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's outer region for a while, collecting the last mana strands for their quest. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. This quest is a tough one. If not for the fine gold guards, we wouldn't have had any hope of completing it. I wonder what kind of rewards we'll get once we turn it in. Blackie pondered, filled with anticipation as he watched Shifeng collect the final mana strand. It'd be awesome if we earned a fragmented legendary item. This was the first time they had completed an inferior legendary quest, and they had obtained this quest in a level 100+ neutral map. The quest rewards would definitely be extraordinary. Alright, tidy up. Once everyone's ready, we're leaving, Shifeng said, chuckling at Blackie's excitement. He did not particularly care about the reward items. He knew that not even an inferior legendary quest had a high chance of granting a fragmented legendary item. Rather, he looked forward to the favorability they'd earn with the famed smith, Alba Grey. In no time, Xueqi and his team stood before Alba Grey once more. Chapter 2398. Disintegration Power. Activate. By the time Xueqi's group returned to Alba Grey, the NPC's divine might had weakened considerably. Even with the protection of the gods, the hero was in danger of dying. Seeing this, Xueqi had to admit that the jealous witch was incredibly powerful. With a single curse, she could cause a hero's downfall. With this kind of power and the witch's erratic mood, it was no wonder why she was considered a natural disaster. When she was in a good mood, she could help a kingdom prosper, but when her mood was sour, she could cause a kingdom's demise. Kingdoms and empires both revered and feared the woman. Lord Alba Grey, we've collected 1,000 strands of the jealous witch's mana. How should we proceed to lift your curse? Xueqi asked the frozen hero. Simple. You just need to release the mana you've collected around me. Alba Grey telepathically communicated with a thread of excitement. However, while I am removing the seal, the jealous witch's frost elf will sense this. I must ask you to stop her until I am free. Just as Xueqi was about to ask for more information, the snow around them stirred. It then gathered into the form of a woman. The woman was nearly 2 meters tall and looked mostly human, but unlike humans, her body was made entirely of snow. Divine runes etched themselves in her frozen form, giving her a sacred aura. One couldn't help the urge to submit to her will as they stood in her presence. As if the ambient mana had discovered its master, it gathered around the woman. A higher magic elf? Everyone gasped when they saw the snow woman's statistics. Ice elf, Ulunium. High magic elf, mythic. Level 110 HP 3. 500 000 000/3. 500 000 000 magic elves had considerably high life ratings in God's domain, much higher than elemental creatures. Many of the spells humans wielded in this day and age had originated from magic elves. Mana favored these beings even more than ordinary elves because they possessed bodies made of mana itself. Meanwhile, high magic elves stood above magic elves in God's domain's hierarchy, akin to kings among magic elves. Their life ratings could even rival that of dragons. Do you really think you can escape my master's curse? Ulunium mocked as she gave Alba Grey a disdainful look. She then swept her glance over Xueqi and his companions, saying, Adventurers, it'd be best if you do not poke your noses into matters that do not concern you. Leave now, and I will spare you. Stay and help Alba Grey, and I'll ensure you remain here, alongside the rest of these foolish knights. As Ulunium spoke, the team felt an overwhelming sense of dread. They struggled to move as if the air around them froze them in place. Even breathing became a laborious task. Is she really a mythic monster? Kola muttered, shocked as he stared at Ulunium. With just a few words, High Magic Elf had immobilized Tier 3 players. She was nothing like the mythic monsters they had faced before. Guild leader, she is far too dangerous for us. If we try to fight her, only the personal guards will last more than 10 seconds. Yan Tianqing expended an immense amount of energy to whisper to Xueqi. I doubt we'll even last 5 seconds against her, Xueqi said, smiling bitterly at Ulunium. He had never expected this inferior legendary quest to be so vicious. Collecting 1,000 mana strands within 10 days in the Demon Wolf Mountain range had already been a nigh impossible task, but the challenge before them was simply a joke. They might have had a chance if the system had pitted them against an ordinary magic elf, but trying to fight a high magic elf was on par with challenging a bona fide dragon. Although they had raided a Tier 4 ice dragon, Heathwaite had been severely injured before they had arrived. Its combat power had been nowhere near its peak. Furthermore, Xueqi had been able to suppress it with his heavenly dragon's breath, which was the only reason they had had a slim chance of defeating it. Ulunium, on the other hand, was a completely different story. Not only was Ulunium's combat power at its peak, but as a high magic elf, she had hundreds of spells under her command. She could wipe a 100-man Tier 3 team off the face of God's domain in a matter of seconds. If players tried to fight her without specific tools to counter her attacks, their only hope of survival was to flee as far and fast as possible. Unfortunately, Summoning a Tier 4 Great Demon with the Bible of Darkness was impossible, as well. Yulunium had high enough intellect that she'd target Xueqi immediately, and the Great Demon wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Adventurers, give me 90 seconds. If you can hold out for that long, I can free myself from this curse. Alba Grey suddenly shouted. Alba Grey's words left everyone speechless. They could barely move within Yulunium's domain. They'd be lucky to stall her for 10 seconds, not to mention 90. Yulunium was no normal mythic monster. She was a creature that was more skilled with her spells than Tier 4 great wizards, and she loved large-scale combat. She could annihilate them all with one AoE spell, leaving no opportunities to challenge her. 90 seconds? After some pondering, Xueqi turned to Kola and asked, Kola, can you hold her for 10 seconds? If I activate my berserk and life-saving skills, it should be doable, Kola said after considering his prowess. He currently wore the Frostwolf set, and with his fragmented legendary shield, he was more than capable of tanking a level 100+ mythic monster. Yulunium's life rating rivaled that of dragons, but he shouldn't have any issues tanking her for 10 seconds if he activated his berserk and life-saving skills. Do you have a plan, guild leader? Yan Tianxing asked. They could simply surrender, but they'd have to bear the brunt of the quest's penalty. I do, but I'm not sure if it will succeed, Xueqi replied. Unfortunately, we have no other options. Kola, get ready. If Alba Grey had asked them to stall Yulunium for several minutes, Xueqi would have had no choice but to surrender, but he had a chance if he only had to hold her off for 90 seconds. Xueqi then retrieved the Bible of Darkness and summoned a great demon. Seeing this confused his companions. They knew that Yulunium was intelligent enough to ignore the great demon and attack its summoner. How could a great demon possibly slow the high magic elf down? Although they weren't sure what Xueqi intended, they followed his instructions and split up, putting as much distance between them and Xueqi as possible. Meanwhile, Kola activated his berserk skill and waited for Xueqi's signal. Go! Xueqi yelled once everyone was in position. He immediately released the mana they had collected around Alba Grey as Kola dashed toward the enraged ice elf, activating Justice Roar to attract her attention. Foolish humans! You will die here with the rest of these fools! Yulunium bellowed. Watching Kola, she lightly waved hand. Ice lances, over a dozen meters long, coalesced in the air and flew toward the MT. Without chanting an incantation or drawing any runes, Yulunium had cast the Tier 4, Ice-type spell, Frost Tooth. As the ice lances flew toward him, Kola relied on his combat standards and reaction speed to dodge, but he failed to evade one of the lances. He was forced to block the attack with his shield. Boom! The ice lance exploded against his shield, and the impact forced Kola to sink into the snowy ground. The attack had dealt over -300,000 damage, taking more than 10% of Kola's total HP. How powerful is she? Everyone's eyes nearly fell from their sockets. Kola had activated his berserk skill and life-saving skills, so he should have substantial damage reduction, yet he had still lost over 10% of his HP from one of Yulunium's attacks. Had he tried to charge at the ice elf without these skills active, she would have one-shot him. Seeing that the first attack had failed to end her target, Yulunium raised her hand again and began to chant an incantation. Responding to her command, a powerful blizzard swept toward Kola, streams of wind striking like pythons and threatening to tear Kola apart. As these wind serpents attacked, Kola was forced to halt his advance and defend himself with his shield. His HP rapidly plummeted. At this rate, he didn't have enough HP to last 5 seconds, much less 10. Fortunately, every healer on the team focused on recovering Kola's HP, keeping him alive, albeit barely. As the seconds passed, Kola's HP climbed and fell like a roller coaster as he danced on the fringes of death. The team's healers couldn't mitigate Yulunium's damage fully, and each round of healing seemed less effective as Kola steadily lost HP. I can't hold on for much longer, guild leader. Kola knew he had bit off more than he could chew as he glanced at his HP bar. As Kola finished his last word, another blizzard assaulted him from behind. Unfortunately, the wind pythons attacking from the front had him preoccupied, and he could only watch as more approached from behind. It's over. Sensing the incoming attack, Kola knew his time was up. However, a figure suddenly appeared behind him. It was none other than Xueqi. 10 seconds have passed. Leave the rest to me. Xueqi shouted over the roaring wind as he charged at the incoming wind python behind Kola. Guild leader. The team was confused as they watched Xueqi try to meet the incoming blizzard in battle. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Kola was a guardian knight, yet the blizzard's pythons had devoured a significant portion of his HP. As a swordsman, Xueqi would only dig his own grave by trying to block the python's attack. Disintegration power. Activate. Just as the blizzard was about to reach him, Xueqi activated the disintegration armor's strongest skill, disintegration power. The intensity of Xueqi's aura immediately skyrocketed, and gray smoke drifted from his body, shattering space around him. As the blizzard's python reached him, Xueqi swung Killing Ray to counter its attack. Chapter 2399. Power of Tier 4. As he swung Killing Ray, the python of ice and wind stretched open its maw and threatened to devour Xueqi. When the sacred sword and the blizzard clashed, the result stupefied everyone watching. With a passing flash of light, the blade sliced apart the powerful, icy attack, dispersing the blizzard. He blocked it. What did the guild leader do? Kola, who desperately fought to hold his ground against the powerful blizzard attacking him, and Yen Tianqing and the rest, who watched from a distance, wondered if they were hallucinating. Yen Tianqing and the others could tell how powerful the wind pythons were based on Kola's struggle against Yulunium's attacks. If they tried to block one of the wind python's strikes, it'd be a miracle if they didn't die instantly, even with an active berserk skill. Kola had already activated his life-saving skill, which drastically reduced incoming damage. Without that, Yulunium's wind pythons would have long since ended his life. And yet, Xueqi had countered one of the wind pythons with a single strike. The outcome even surprised Xueqi. He hadn't expected his strike to be so powerful after using disintegration power to upgrade himself to a Tier 4 Sword Emperor. So, this is the true strength of a Sword Emperor. Xueqi thought as he relished the strength he had wielded with his counterattack. Xueqi had never been able to break past Tier 3 into Tier 4 during his previous life, so he had never felt the power a Tier 4 player commanded. He only knew that they were incredibly strong. But after taking a moment to adapt to his Tier 4 epic mana body, he more or less understood why so few Tier 3 players could stand against those at Tier 4, even when wielding a fragmented legendary weapon. The differences between Tier 3 and Tier 4 players weren't limited to basic attributes and physique. There was also a qualitative difference in the way their bodies conducted mana. With his improved mana body, Xueqi's mind was clearer than ever before, and his body constantly felt at the ready. This was evident through his counterattack. He had used the bronze combat technique, Lightning Flash, executing 17 attacks in a single strike. As he did, the 17 attacks had even devoured the space before them, which was a feat he definitely wasn't capable of without disintegration power active. With how clear his mind was, he knew that Tier 3 players had no hope against Tier 4 players, even if they managed to bridge the gap between their basic attributes and physiques. A Tier 4 mental state was on an entirely different level. During the brief moment Xueqi analyzed his Tier 4 state, Yulunium became enraged, having seen this swordsman shatter her attack, and the ambient mana began to rampage around her. The Ice Elf began to chant another incantation while she drew divine runes in the air with flying speed, stupefying Iluafe and the other magical class team members. Based on the number of runes Yulunium drew, she was clearly trying to cast a large-scale destruction spell. But normally, players needed a long time to complete such a spell. The High Magic Elf, on the other hand, drew several dozen lines of divine runes in 2 seconds. It was simply unbelievable. Before the watching team members could snap out of their dazes, a magic array covering a 200-yard radius appeared above the snowy battlefield. As it did, it sucked dry all ice-type mana in the area, concentrating it within the array's core. Insignificant humans, you will pay for your foolishness. Yulunium snarled after finishing her chant. She then raised a fine-boned finger and pointed it at Xueqi. Tier 4 large-scale destruction spell. Frost Shower. Several hundred icy meteors pulled themselves free from the magic array and descended on the frozen lake, each one containing enough power to shatter space itself. We're doomed. Watching the incoming meteors, the team began to despair. This attack could even wipe out a team of several hundred Tier 3 players in an instant. She's finally getting serious? Xueqi, on the other hand, wasn't surprised to see the incoming balls of ice. Calmly, he activated the 7 Luminaries Ring's absolute domain. High magic elves could even rival gods' domain's dragons. And how powerful exactly was a dragon? A dragon was the personification of a natural disaster. Not even a full kingdom could stop a dragon's wrath, and it would be forced to watch as the creature devastated its territories. High magic elves might have a slightly lower life rating than dragons, but they had the combat power to rival the monstrosities due to their exceptional talent with wielding magic. High magic elves could effortlessly cast frighteningly powerful spells, which usually required a long casting time. An ordinary Tier 4 Great Wizard, for example, would need a dozen seconds to cast a Tier 4 large-scale destruction spell, but Ulunium only needed 2 seconds. As the hail of meteors bombarded the frozen lake, they transformed a 200-yard radius area into an icy hell. Fortunately, not even Tier 4 spells could break through Shifeng's absolute domain, and Shifeng and his companions within range of his skill emerged unharmed. The moment Ulunium's attack ended, Shifeng charged at the ice elf. Ulunium was a magical class being. If she were allowed to cast her spells freely, she could even slay Tier 5 players, much less Shifeng's Tier 3 teammates. If Shifeng wanted to prevent her from slaughtering them all, he had to face her in melee combat. With absolute domain's protection, Shifeng could approach Ulunium while she bombarded him with a steady stream of Tier 4 spells, but as he approached, he had to admit that this ice elf was incredibly powerful. Not only were her basic attributes considerably higher than his, but she also had an endless supply of Tier 4 spells at her command. Even after forcibly promoting himself to Tier 4, Shifeng was at a major disadvantage. With absolute domain's duration running out, Zero Wings members, who watched from a distance, began to grow nervous. Ulunium would have torn Shifeng to shreds by now if not for absolute domain's protection. Her attacks against their guild leader weren't like the Ice Elf's assault against Kola. She had even begun to double speed cast. Combined with her already absurd casting speed, not even Shifeng could dodge all of her attacks in time. He was forced to rely on Sword's orbit to block some of the attacks, lest the impact knock him back. As though she had anticipated the moment, Ulunium sneered and summoned a crystalline staff the instant absolute domain came to an end. With a swing of her staff, she revealed numerous magic arrays that had been hidden under the snow around her. Countless icicles shot from the arrays, flying toward Shifeng, and a powerful blizzard of hail and snow descended on the swordsman. Are you kidding me? Is Ulunium really just a monster? Blackie's eyes nearly fell from their sockets when he saw the magic arrays appear around Shifeng. Not only had the ice elf set traps during the battle, but her traps had been so cleverly placed that not even Blackie, a cursemancer, had noticed them. This was the first time he had ever experienced such a thing in God's domain. Moreover, Ulunium had concealed over a dozen magic arrays under the snow. As they activated simultaneously, they had the power of more than a dozen Tier 4 magical classes attacking as one. An attack like this would even turn a Tier 4 metric tons into Swiss cheese. As expected of a high magic elf, she's even calculated my skill's duration. The incoming icicles didn't surprise Shifeng in the least. He immediately commanded his summoned great demon, which had been on standby, to join the fray. Mythic monsters' intellect shouldn't be underestimated after level 100, especially that of a high magic elf like Ulunium. Shifeng had expected her to employ traps. If these creatures were any weaker, the various superpowers of his previous life wouldn't have struggled so hard against superior mythics. The great demon appeared behind Shifeng instantly and blocked the icicles coming in from behind its master. With the great demon's help, Shifeng could concentrate on the wind pythons attacking him head-on. However, despite focusing on defense, the wind pythons were too powerful for him, and his HP continued to fall with each attack he blocked. If he hadn't had the help of his healer's diligent spellcasting, he wouldn't have lasted more than 15 seconds against this bombardment. With the great demon guarding his back and the rear-line healer's support, Shifeng had a much easier time distracting Ulunium. Before even Shifeng had realized it, another 50 or so seconds had passed, and only 5 seconds remained before disintegration power's duration would end. All of your efforts are futile, human. Your power is already fading, and once it does, both you and Alba Grey will forever decorate this lake as ice sculptures. Ulunium declared, flashing Shifeng a sinister grin when she sensed disintegration power begin to fade. Is that so? Shifeng shot back, unfazed despite disintegration power's duration running out. On the contrary, he revealed a bright smile as he said, I disagree. With that comment, Ulunium realized that something was amiss. She immediately shifted her gaze toward the distant Anna, But it was too late as the personal guard completed the final verse of her incantation. A holy light pierced the clouds and shot toward the frozen lake as a higher Valkyrie with 3 sets of pure white wings appeared not far from the ice elf. A higher Valkyrie? Eulunium's expression shifted when she saw her newest opponent. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. The Valkyrie gave Eulunium no time to prepare as she threw her thunder spear at the high magic elf, its astonishing power exploding through the space around it. A higher Valkyrie's life rating couldn't compare to that of a dragon, but it was on par with a high magic elf. Eulunium was forced to focus on the higher Valkyrie's attack, defending herself. The higher Valkyrie demanded all of Eulunium's attention, and the ice elf had no energy to spare on Xueqi. She couldn't even defend herself from his great demon's attacks, which steadily chipped away at her HP. As the seconds passed, the curse on Alba Grey grew weaker, yet Eulunium couldn't do anything about it. 90 seconds after Xueqi had released the jealous witch's mana around the NPC, everyone heard ice shatter as Alba Grey broke free of his icy prison. Chapter 2400 Sword Saint. Seeing Alba Grey break free from his curse, Xueqi breathed a deep sigh of relief. Although the higher Valkyrie could keep Eulunium busy, it couldn't exist for long. If the higher Valkyrie had disappeared before Alba Grey had freed himself, Xueqi wouldn't have been able to stop the ice elf even with twofold berserk. Not only was there a full tier difference between them, but Eulunium was also powerful enough to rival a dragon. Xueqi wouldn't have been able to resist her attacks for long. Damn it! Eulunium grew incensed when she noticed Alba Grey was free. She swung her icy staff at Xueqi, bellowing, "I'll send you all to hell." The high magic elf began to chant an incantation, and a 3-fold magic array covering a 500-yard radius began to form in the sky. The instant the array took shape, it tore apart space around it. 2 seconds later, these spatial tiers transformed into a gigantic black hole. So, this is her true strength. Xueqi looked up at the black hole with a grim expression. Tier 5 spell, Void Storm. Tier 5 spells were beyond extraordinary. They had enough power to destroy an entire city, transforming it into a lifeless land. This was why the various kingdoms and empires feared Tier 5 beings. Even emperors had to show respect before them. Xueqi had never dreamed that Eulunium could cast Tier 5 spells, despite being a Tier 4 creature. There was only a difference of 1 tier between Tier 4 and 5, but the difference between a Tier 4 spell and a Tier 5 spell was like the difference between heaven and earth. Any random Tier 5 offensive spell could severely injure a Tier 4 creature. If a Tier 4 player tried to stand against a Tier 5 spell, their death would almost be a guarantee. Even Tier 4 MTs could withstand such power. Players wouldn't even have a chance to flee since the amount of mana a Tier 5 spell commanded would freeze space around them. When Zero Wings members saw the void storm forming above them, they turned a deathly pale. The resulting shockwave would easily cover several thousand yards. They had no hope of escaping this spell's range. Before any of them could start running for their lives, however, a pitch-black storm emerged from the black hole, covering the world in an endless darkness. Not even Xueqi knew how to get out of this one. Absolute Domain might be able to protect them, but the skill was still on cooldown. They couldn't escape via instantaneous transfer scrolls, either, since space around them had frozen. Fortunately, they had completed their quest. Even if they died, they'd only lose some EXP, which they could quickly recover. Seeing the descending storm of darkness, Xueqi prepared to die. Suddenly, Alba Grey unsheathed the golden sword hanging from his waist and slashed it toward the endless darkness. A brilliant light spread through the darkness, purifying it. In just 3 seconds, Alba Grey's holy light had vanquished Eulunium's void storm. Crap! Isn't that hero a little too powerful? Yan Tianqing and the others gaped in shock, unable to process what had just happened. In one move, Eulunium had transformed the day into night, whereas Alba Grey had returned daylight to the frozen lake with a move of his own. Their combat power was simply unbelievable. Staring at Alba Grey, Zero Wings members finally understood what it meant to be a hero. A hero could not be overwhelmed by numbers. All of the monsters they had fought were insignificant before Alba Grey. The NPC could likely even slaughter a full group of Tier 4 players instantly. Damn it! You've actually become a sword saint. Eulunium stared at Alba Grey in astonishment as her void storm dissipated. That's right. Removing the curse has allowed me to grasp some of the principles I needed to make a breakthrough. You are no longer a match for me. Alba Grey roared, a hint of excitement lacing his tone. Although the jealous witch's curse had caused him endless suffering, studying it had allowed him to understand the concepts he needed to become a true Tier 5 Sword Saint. A Tier 5 Sword Saint. Xueqi was similarly shocked, and he spun to look at Alba Grey. Alba Grey, Sacred Magic Knight. Hero, Sword Saint level? HP? / NPCs faced greater struggles when trying to complete their promotions, but this was also why NPCs' status rose dramatically with every promotion in God's domain. A Tier 3 NPC, for example, could serve as a minor city's magistrate, while a Tier 4 NPC could serve as a magistrate in a major city. Even emperors had to show respect before Tier 5 NPCs. But as far as Xueqi could remember, Alba Grey had only been a Tier 4 hero during his previous life. This hadn't changed even after 10 years since God's Domain's launch. Alba Grey had never managed to become a Tier 5 Sword Saint. Even so, as a hero, Alba Grey had been able to contend with ordinary Tier 5 NPCs, including his identity as a famed smith. Even the various empires had taken him seriously. And yet, Alba Grey was now a Tier 5 Sword Saint. It is true. Now that you are a Sword Saint, I am no match for you, but don't you dare think this is over. Yulunium declared as she glared at Alba Grey. She then turned to Xueqi and continued, "You as well, adventurer." After her bold declaration, the ice elf began to disintegrate into snowflakes. "Don't think you can get away from me that easily," Alba Grey shouted. He unsheathed the second sword hanging from his waist and charged at Yulunium, swinging the pitch-black blade. He had only executed a normal slash, but from a distance, the attack had looked like a black wall, rising into the air and extending more than 500 meters. The pitch-black wall bisected the high magic elf, and Yulunium released a harrowing scream as a snow-white energy crystal fell from her body. Although the attack had significantly weakened Yulunium's life aura, she successfully read latest chapters at Xueqi World. As the black wall faded from existence, only Alba Grey remained on the snow-covered lake. It seemed she still managed to escape. Alba Grey frowned as he glared at the spatial tear before him. Xueqi, who stood nearby, wasn't surprised in the least that the ice elf had gotten away. A mythic-ranked high magic elf was on par with a mythic-ranked world boss of the same level. In fact, she should be even stronger. She could cast Tier 5 spells, after all, which proved that she was only half a step away from becoming a Tier 5 being herself. Even a Tier 5 hero would face a long battle to kill her. With Yulunium's disappearance, Xueqi heard the sound of a system notification. System. Congratulations! You have completed the inferior legendary quest, last night. Quest completion rate. 93%. Quest rating. S rank. Chapter 2401. Alba Grey's reward and S-rank rating? Xueqi was astonished when he saw the outcome of his quest. He'd thought that he had barely passed with a C-rank rating. His team had spent 9 days collecting the 1,000 mana strands. He had never dreamed that he would earn an S-rank rating after taking so long. Receiving an S-rank rating for high-ranked quests with completion rate indicators was incredibly difficult in God's domain. The quests themselves were typically challenging, and players had to complete the quest to near perfection to achieve such a high result. However, if players could earn an S-rank rating, the original rewards would be improved slightly. Although the bonus wouldn't be very high, the additional rewards for an epic ranked or higher quest would be extremely valuable. A player had a 20% chance of earning an epic item as their reward for completing an epic quest, but if they gained the bonus from an S-rank rating, their chances of earning an epic item would increase to 30% or even 40%. When completing an inferior legendary quest, an S-rank rating could lead to a fragmented legendary item as a reward, which was normally impossible. Although Zero Wing had plenty of fragmented legendary items, every fragmented legendary item could enable a player to become a peak or apex expert in the future. Thus, every fragmented legendary item was a welcome addition. After the system had notified Xueqi of his results, Alba Grey approached him. "Fellow adventurers, thank you for saving me from that curse. I owe you all a big favor. Although my night division is no more, I will do my best to assist you with one matter. Albagray gratefully offered, showing none of the arrogance Tier 5 powerhouses usually possessed. System. You have obtained Albagray's trust. Albagray's favorability of you has increased by 80 points. You have obtained Albagray's communication crystal. Albagray's statement and the system notification excited every member of the team. They had already witnessed the hero's power, and now, they could reach out to Albagray and ask him for a favor. None of them had expected to receive this kind of reward. Guild leader, with Albagray's help, we can destroy one of Starlink's cities. I can't wait to see their faces, Cola said, his eyes glowing as he gazed at Albagray. That's right. Let's destroy Starlink's new city. I want to see how they intend to duke it out with us after that. Blackie exclaimed, nodding. Starlink had persistently caused trouble for Zero Wing, especially with its newest city. That city had claimed a ton of Zero Wing's potential profit. If they destroyed it, not only would Stone Forest City regain its unique status as the only city in a level 100 neutral map, but they could also deal a heavy blow to their enemy, killing two birds with one stone. No, we no longer need to resort to such a tactic, Xueqi said, shaking his head. Starlink had constructed a city near a level 100 neutral map, but even if Albagray destroyed it, there was no guarantee that Starlink couldn't construct a new city. Moreover, other superpowers would soon have cities of their own in level 100 neutral maps. The various superpowers experts had already reached level 100 and begun to challenge their Tier 3 promotion quests. Constructing a new city near a level 100 neutral map wouldn't be difficult before long. Moreover, Albagray's favor was incomparably valuable, especially now that he had become a sword saint. Even emperors would struggle to earn a favor from this hero. Asking Albagray to attack a mere guild city was like killing a mosquito with a bazooka. Xueqi then walked up to the freed hero. Lord Hero, I am a forger and have always been passionate about my craft. I am particularly interested in mana forging, and I have heard that your research on the subject is unparalleled on the continent. I'd like to study your notes if you'll allow it. Xueqi stated his request after taking a deep breath. A Tier 5 sword saint could even destroy a kingdom with ease, much less a city, but destroying a kingdom was nothing compared to the value of a famed smith's knowledge. Due to Albagray's status as a famed smith, even demigods treated him with respect. Of the many things this NPC was known for, the most famous was his mana forging notes. It was the capital Albagray had relied on to become a famed smith in the first place. In fact, his mana forging notes were one of the reasons that the Ten Saints Empire had become as powerful as it was now. The various superpowers had fought tooth and nail for a single leaf of Albagray's mana forging notes. Some had even offered to trade fragmented legendary items for the pages. With Albagray standing before him and offering him a favor, Xueqi had to secure the very item that made the NPC so famous. The hero took a long look at Xueqi, and the silence stretched until it felt awkward. Is the request too much? Xueqi anxiously asked. You have a very good eye, young adventurer. You know what is most valuable, Albagray praised. Unfortunately, I've stored my mana forging notes in the Ten Saints Empire's Imperial Library. Not even I have the authority to retrieve them, and unfortunately, the materials I would need to create a copy no longer exist in this world. Sure enough. Although Xueqi was disappointed, he wasn't surprised. The Ten Saints Empire treated Albagray's mana forging notes as a national treasure. The notes were even more valuable than a legendary item. Just as Xueqi was about to give up and wondered if he should ask the famed smith to craft him a custom-made fragmented legendary item, Albagray opened his mouth to speak again. But don't be too disappointed. Before I penned the official mana forging notes, I created a few drafts. Although I have lost many of them, I do have one volume of my drafts with me. If you don't mind, I can gift you this volume, Albagray informed Xueqi as he retrieved an ancient booklet that radiated faint traces of mana. The booklet was old and tattered, but it felt somehow timeless, as if very few things in this world could destroy it. Thank you, Lord Hero. I will take good care of it, Xueqi said as he accepted the booklet. He was still disheartened that he couldn't obtain the full compilation of the mana forging notes. He was surprised and pleased that he could obtain one of the notes volumes. Albagray had relied on his mana forging notes to become a famed smith. A single volume could easily rival the value of a legendary item. There's no need to thank me. If you need help in the future, you may contact me through my communication crystal, Albagray said, smiling. He then transformed into a streak of light and disappeared from everyone's vision. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU system. You have earned Alba Gray's admiration. Alba Gray's favorability of you has increased by 10 points. System. Alba Gray's favorability of you has reached 100 points. You have become Alba Gray's friend. Blackie and the others were confused as they watched the exchange. They didn't understand why Xueqi had asked the hero for a tattered notebook, and based on their guild leader's expression, he seemed ecstatic about it. As Xueqi stored the mana-forging notes draft volume in his bag, Yan Tianqing approached with a white energy crystal in hand. Guild leader, this crystal Ulunium dropped is very strange. Even with my master appraisal skill, I couldn't appraise it, Yan Tianqing said, a hint of excitement flashing in his eyes as he gazed at the energy crystal. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.